Hello, everyone, and welcome at the FIDE Candidates Women Tournament Pool B. Here we have this tournament happening in Uzbekistan. For the first time, this country hosts very big event, and we do have 4 players fighting for the first place and for the right to play in the finals against Lei Tengli. In the finals, the winner will go to the World Championship match and challenge the current women world champion, Jiwan Jun. Here we are today. This is round 2, and your commentators will be today, as the other days, Grandmaster Arturs, Neiksans, and women Grandmaster Keti, Tsatsalashvili. Hello, Arturs.
Hello, Keti. Of course, it's absolute pleasure to be back for the second day, and here you see there's all of the information on the screen in case you are interested where the tournament is being held. It's the ancient city of Uzbekistan, Khiva, right? Hotel Faravon, Khiva. And these are the participants: Goryachkina Alexandra Kosteniuk, who played yesterday, Tan Zhongyi, and Lagno. 4 of the players are fighting out in the Pool B because the Pool A was held in October-November in Monaco, and now it's time to find out who is going to be the challenger of Lei Tengli in the final candidates match. So here you see, this is the format, Keti.
Yeah, our format is a knockout system, which is very exciting for us as spectators to see, which means that out of the 4 games, we're going to have 1 winner in the match. If the match is tied, then we're going to have also tie breaks. So in the end of the round 1, we're going to have only 2 participants playing for the second round. The prize fund is 70,000 euro, where the player has already, all of them, guaranteed 20,000 euro just to be a participant of this event. And also, Arturs, what's very important in the final, which will happen later this year, or maybe even next year, will be the prize fund 110,000 euros, which is great.
Right.
Prize fund for women event.
Absolutely amazing prize fund here. And here you also see the schedule of the Women Candidates Tournament. So yesterday was the first round of the 2-week-long marathon. There's going to be some rest days. You can mark it in your calendars. December 1, 5th, and 8th. Those are the 3 days. And 3 p.m. Khiva time. That is Uzbekistan time, in case you're wondering. And that is but pretty much 11 a.m. Central European time. So a bit early perhaps for Americans to watch it, but it is what it is. And I believe the games are about to start in something like 2 minutes.
The players are, almost all of them are ready. 1 player is missing, and that's Tan Zhongyi. She's playing with black pieces today against Katerina Lagno. Everybody is now waiting for the arbiter to start the clocks. You can imagine how much is the tension right now. And soon we're going to know the first moves on those 2 boards. Before we see the opening of this round, let's talk a little bit about the festival, which is happening right now alongside with the main event, which is FIDE Women's Candidate Tournament. There is also a chess festival with 206 participants, including super grandmasters such as Nodirbek Yakuboyev, who is the first rated player in the open category. And you can see a lot of well-known names there on the playing list. Also, the tournament includes A, B, and C categories, where this categories is divided by the ratings of the participants.
I think, Keti, this is also quite important for the women candidates players, because imagine yourself, you're playing in a hotel and you're just 4. Right? It's a bit difficult, and I think that chess players are, they like to socialize. And there's another very big event happening, and actually it's 3 groups, Group A, B, and C, Al Biruni chess tournament. It also helps for the players, right? Because the more the merrier. And they can, of course, also follow each other. And here you see the games are about to start. I would guess that they already made moves, but I wanted to guess that Lagno is going to start with e4 and Goryachkina is going to start with d4.
Yeah, we do have already first moves happening. But before we get the second and third moves rather fast, let's take a look now, a highlight video of the opening ceremony of the chess festival, which is happening alongside as the Women's FIDE candidate tournament. And here we are back from the opening ceremony and the highlights of the other festival, which is happening right now. As you can see, guys, the games are heating up and you can see the fighting spirit in the playing venue. It's something unusual to see only two boards at the chess tournaments. Usually we have hundreds of the participants, but this is the new format what we have nowadays at this high level of the chess tournaments, and that is what we have to handle for the moment. Artur, let's take a look at the first moves and check it out, what they have played.
I think we are going to start with Goryachkina against Kosteniuk because we have them on the screen, and I think actually this is a minor surprise, although Goryachkina doesn't want to show it. In their previous games with white, Goryachkina will always start with d4, right? The d4, sometimes they would go to the Catalan or Queen's Gambit declined, and boom, there you go. Suddenly there's a Rai Lopez. But since Kosteniuk replied quite instantly with a Rai Lopez, including a6, no Berlin, he's going to be here today, at least in this game. This means probably she did anticipate. Because I think we had this already discussion, at least started it yesterday, Keti, is that when you arrive to such a very serious tournament like the FIDE Women Candidates Tournament, you are preparing some surprises, right? So it's not enough just to play what are you used to play, so you come up usually with a concept. And since here Goryachkina is playing e4, I would actually guess that this is a big preparation for the entire tournament, not just one game.
I guess so too. I can't agree more. And usually the players are having the chain of the tournaments, and before that they like to have some kind of training camp with the coaches and the seconds. So, and to have the surprises, quite often the surprises scores some nice points.
Right, indeed. And here we see that players are going for the martial attack after the short castle. This is a very, very interesting line which has been around pretty much forever. And the big idea here that black postpones the idea to play d6. And I think that after white c3, which of course is not mandatory, black wants to sacrifice the pawn with d5, take it, knight e5, takes, rook e5, c6, and there you go, right? This is very, very big theory, of course. It's been around forever. But, Keti, I think the general reputation here is black is doing all right.
Okay, white has made a move, and that is a4. White is starting to get some space advantage on the queen side with a4. Right now, a b5 is a threat that white wants to take this pawn, and as the rook on a8 is pinned, cannot be captured, the pawn on back on b5. So black has to react. How black is going to react? Is there bishop to b7? Is there b4? What are the ways how black can react in here?
I think that A4 is anti-martial. I mean, pretty much to any opening, there's some kind of an anti-response. And White says, I'm not in the mood of martial. And that being said, there's nothing wrong with the martial. Maybe Goryachkina wasn't quite ready for this. So A4 has been around for forever. For Kosteniuk, this probably also should be, I guess, an expected response. But I think the big point is here, if Black plays something automatic as Rook B8, which I think is not ideal, then you take and play C3, and this is clearly an improved version of the martial, because now if you play D5 and take on D5, and we go pretty much to the same setup, here you see the difference, right? White has opened the A file and pretty much solves the problem of the rook. I mean, maybe it's not a super huge difference, but it helps White. So I would expect that here Kosteniuk would play something else, and actually we do have bishop B7 on the board.
Okay, bishop to B7 has been played, and things are happening really fast also in the other game. Shall we take a look what is happening between Katerina Lagno and Tan Zhongyi?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do this. So in the second game, we have what this is. I think this is the so-called masqueration of the Najdorf, right? It looks very, very familiar. How do I know this, Keti? Well, I played it for years, really. So
with white pieces?
Yeah, with white pieces. Okay. So I could tell you quite a bit about this line. But to be honest, C5 is a little surprised, because it was to be expected that Katerina is going to play E4, because once again, this is what they played all the time against each other, with Katerina with the white color and Tan Zhongyi with black. But here, the Chinese Grandmaster would respond with every single time it's something else. And I was guessing maybe it's Berlin, maybe it's going to be some Sicilian Sveshnikov. And in the previous game, she would play some rather offbeat Sicilian lines. Now that's why, again, this knight of 3 d6 is probably a bigger preparation by the Chinese Grandmaster to prepare something specific for this tournament. So bishop e5, Katerina says, I'm not in the mood for the mainstream theory of the Sicilian Najdorf.
Yeah, and when you see that your opponents switch the preparation and the opening, you definitely don't want to go to your own main lines, and you prefer to play sideline. My personal opinion about Moscow system is that this is free risk position for whites. Most of the cases, you gain the space in the center, and then you have very clear plan. You want to attack the black's king, which in most of the cases ends in a victory of the side who attacks the king. So let's see how they continue to play, and what is the situation right now, because they are playing these moves really fast.
Right, Keti. So bishop d7, I think that there's pretty much a huge choice for black. And when you would follow the games at a competitive level, you would notice knight e7 is the sharp way to continue. I mean, black is in the mood to fight for more than just equality, because he's aiming to get the two bishop advantage. And bishop d7 is like the positional approach. I mean, it sounds weird, right? I mean, black is playing the Najdorf, and at the same time, black says, I'm gonna go for the positional game. But talking about the Moscow variation, I really like, I think it was Anish Giri, who some time ago said that he no longer treats the bishop b5 check, the Moscow variation, as side theory. This is the main stuff already, right? It's being developed really far. White gets an annoying positional game, and this is actually it makes sense, because your opponent plays something very sharp, a Sicilian Najdorf, and you go for an annoying positional development, and black simply cannot get the dynamic game that he wants, right? So in this regard,
yeah, that's the worst part. When you're ready, first of all, at this point, all the players have some kind of backup openings. I just checked the opening of Tan Zhongyi, and her main first move is d6 after e4, and then she plays c5 and e5 as much, the average, not too much. But her main line is a d6, and he likes to play these pretty type of positions. So when she chooses to go Sicilian, that means that she wants to have these sharp positions. She is prepared because of some lines that Katerina Lagno plays. And then Katerina, not spending a second, like she was like, oh, okay, I knew that you would change something, and I was prepared for this. After c5, she goes to the sideline, avoids all these sharp variations of the Sicilian, and has a very, very nice position. And also for me, when it happens to me, I'm like, oh no, again this Moscow line. And then you have to go with this passive setup, wait a little bit, because let's be honest, you cannot do as much in these positions with black as you can do in the Najdorf or in Rouser systems, right?
Right. Right, indeed. So for black, it's much more difficult to get a sharper game. But here after queen d7, Keti, Katerina chose something which I thought was a bit obsolete at the highest level. So short castle, knight c6, c3. Well, let me tell you about this. It's what I call the old theory, right? I mean, okay, somebody might disagree with me, right? Because everything new is pretty much rediscovered old. But after queen d7, I think the modern approach here is c4. And it's been around pretty much forever. I fancy it myself. Now, the big point is after c4, let's say knight c6, we get the Marazzi bind. So I can only assume that Tan Zhongyi has managed to find a pretty convincing way to equalize. I don't know what it is, but c4, at least at the competitive circuit, has been around forever, and black is, really has to prove there's the equality. So let's not delve into that. And here, after queen d7, short castle, c3, knight f6, there's a couple of ways how white can continue. It's either queen e2, it's either rook e1. There's even a positional pawn sacrifice with d4, sacrificing the pawn on e4. But okay, I mean, the rook e1 makes perfect sense, of course. And now let's just fast forward. d4, c takes, and e5. Now, here, white is pretty much obliged to play e5 because something like knight c3 is not very good, because I guess black simply takes twice on e4, plays bishop e7, and white is simply left the isolated pawn on d5 with, no attack, right, at the king side. So that's why here after d5, white responds with e5, knight e4, and this is where came the first surprise. Rook e3. And Keti, I'm looking at this move, I haven't seen it before. Because the main moves here, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's, what was it? I think it was...
Knight d2 is the game. I had this yesterday at Title Tuesday. I played this tournament, and my opponent unfortunately checkmated me. Right,
so there's this idea. And then also, for example, if white would play, where was this? Not rook e1, but let's say queen e2, there's also this idea. Pretty much the same stuff. d4, takes, d5, e5, knight e4. And here's this idea of bishop e3 and knight e1. So you try to capture the knight on e4, and then black somehow tries to escape it on g5. But the general reputation, black is solid. Move on, right? And that's why we go back. We go back to what was played here, and rook e3. This is something new with the idea of knight e1 f3, and and here Tan Zhongyi, after a couple of minutes of thought, played bishop e7.
Yeah, and then she goes knight to c3. That's very interesting. So she needed this rook to be on the third rank to take this knight with the rook, because Artur, instead of rook to e3, there is knight to d2 and knight c3 as well, to get rid of this central knight of blacks on e4. But she decides to go this way, and look at her pace of the playing. She's playing very fast. She's so prepared for this line.
This is definitely a prep. You don't shoot out rook e3 without clearly having a homework, and I think that what Lagno did here, or her coach, I kind of suspect might be Alexander Goryachkina. I don't really know because they're married, right? But you never know where the idea came from. But it's very typical. You find an older line, and then you discover a new idea. Maybe, I don't know, for 1 game or 2 games, and then you bring it out, and of course your opponent doesn't expect it, because last time she probably checked this line, like, I don't know, it was a couple of years ago. She knows it's solid there, boom, rook e3 happens. Now, about this position, if we fast forward, what probably is Lagno's idea, she wants to go for the kingside attack, because the structure here, the pawns on c3, d4, e5, they pretty much signal that white wants to expand at the king side. So for example, let's say something like a short castle. Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going to be the next move. Maybe
91, I guess.
91. Maybe 91. You know, Keti, I'm not really sure, but it's quite obvious. Something to do with the king side. And perhaps the big preparation for Lagno here is that black doesn't have this typical attack at the queen side. And after f6, let's say I play something like rook d3, f6, white tries to capitalize on this weakness on e6 and a potential outpost on e5. So I'm really far-fetching guessing what might be the continuation here, but it's pretty obvious this is a prep. Doesn't look very dangerous though, but maybe for 1 game it's good enough.
Yeah, very interesting, Arthur. At this point, after b takes c3, there are few games played in online, and there can be knight to a5 to look for the c4 outpost right away. There's rook to c8. There's long castle and there's short castle. Those are the 4 moves that has been played, but not at the high level. It's just couple of online games. And what's very interesting, after knight a5, which looks very nice move to go for this square right away, now white plays knight to e1. White wants to open up the rook to go to g3, and black can play here with long castle.
Oh, so not knight c4, but long castle. This actually makes sense, because you hide a king at the queen side, where for white it's going to be quite difficult to open it, because there's no c4, right? The b file is there, but you can't easily double the rooks, because this rook is already on e3. But again, the question, Keti, is if you are playing this line of black and your opponent has prepared this, are you going to walk into the long castle? Because you definitely suspect this is a preparation. And Tan Zhongyi knows at the moment she's not playing against perhaps Katerina Lagno. Maybe it's Goryachkina, maybe it's the top-notch engine. There's definitely a deeper prep, right? And she also suspects that even if long castle looks really nice and interesting, and maybe she's gonna gather the courage to play it, she suspects, and probably she's right to do it, that there's going to be a series of moves to follow after that. And that's why she now has to make a big decision. I mean, first, how to make a very good move, and second, how do I kick the opponent out of the preparation, right? Because it's a really, really nice feeling to destroy the prep and look in the opponent in the eye and see the smile fades, right? I don't know, what is this move, right? And then you feel relaxed. Okay, now I'm no longer playing against an engine here. But
Artur, it's so hard to find and discover any new move here. Either you go short castle or you go long castle here. You can't keep the king in the center, right? So you have to choose, and the other ideas are almost very typical. This f6 move is a very typical stuff. And what I can see now, Tan Zhongyi taking her time at this point already. She took about 8 minutes up to this point to spend in the opening, and this means that she is just not very comfortable of her choice of the opening. Perhaps very often I have this, when I play something new, I have this feeling that why didn't I go the lines that I know very well and I feel very comfortable with it. But we're just talking about this game as the psychological point of view. But if we just speak about the board, it's not that tragic, right? It's equal position, and if you know how to equalize it, there's no worries here whatsoever, and you can definitely hold this position with black.
I mean, it's completely normal And you can't really expect when you enter such a tournament that you're going to be prepared for every move of the opponent. I mean, if this is really true, then the question is, what did the coaches of the opponents do, right? Because there has to be a surprise element in order to kick the opponent out of the prep. So I think you just accept that, okay, this is normal, right? I don't know this move. This is definitely a prep. Okay, everything is cool. I still have a very solid position. Nothing is wrong with this. So you probably want to sit here for a while, try to figure out how far the preparation of the opponent goes. What is the most logical way to continue? How can you try to kick the opponent out of the preparation? And yeah, I mean, but I think it's very important to keep a cool head and not start about, oh my God, right? I mean, I don't know what this is, right? Time to panic. That's how trouble start.
I like that. Oh my God. No, poker face is very important attribute for the Arturs players. Can we take a very close look up with the players and the playing venue? Maybe we can read a little bit about Tan Zhongyi's body language and her face impression, if she is showing in any of this, so we can understand that how she's feeling right now.
Yeah, let's check it.
And we can so far see that Katerina Lagno is just walking all this time, while Tan Zhongyi has took 10 minutes of the deep thinking. So far, she has not made any move, and the time is ticking. That is exactly what Artur and I were talking about when you want to have Sicilian position. This is not the Sicilian you want to have, to be confused where to castle, long side, short side. In Sicilian, you're always struggling with the king and with the attack, but you know you're ready to go there because also your opponent's king is out there too. And here we have Tan Zhongyi very deep in her thoughts. Maybe she wants to make her next move now. Artur, there has been told from many grandmasters and the chess players that if you take more than 15 minutes, it means that you are not feeling very comfortable in your position and you might make some difficult choices. And meanwhile, she just castled.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I think that, at least according to my understanding, in a classical game, it's normal to spend 15 to 20 minutes in several critical moments of the game, right? You pretty much need to decide where the game is going to turn, left or right, upside or down, tactical game or positional game. So you need to spend some time, evaluate, compare, sometimes guess, right? You don't really know. But I think that when you're starting to feel really confused, and you can feel it when one of the players spends something like 40 minutes. So 40, 50 minutes, well, this is clearly already confusion, because the idea was originally to play something else, and instead the player changed mind. So here we see that short castle has already been played. 91 blitzed out very quickly from Katerina Lagno, and this is also part of the psychological game, because she wants to play as fast as possible, because once again, this is definitely going to slow down Tan Zhongyi's next moves, because she still knows this is still opening prep. Mm-hmm. She's still not playing against Lagno, and Keti, it actually reminds me, I think, at the professional level, there's one player who really likes to bluff, at least the way I understand it, while still, out of the prep, that's Daniil Dubov, right? He is out of the prep, and he still plays it very fast. So the players suspect this is still an opening prep, right? This is very, very interesting stuff.
Yeah, talking about Dubov, Lars Cooper in our chat on Twitch says that Dubov played rook to e3 against Mamedov in the Speed Chess Championship online event earlier this month. So this is actually what happens when someone plays some new move, that everybody plays then this very same new move next day. So perhaps it's kind of preparation.
No, it's definitely
that
prep.
All the team has worked together and they are going with that.
Yeah, I think this might be the case. I don't really know if this is Dubov who is helping Katerina. I mean, I don't really know about that, but definitely everybody's watching what's being played on. For example, one day Magnus Carlsen plays a move. That's it. The next day, everybody knows, right? It's already been analyzed on the top level engines. And I think about this line, it maybe doesn't look so poisonous, but I do believe, Keti, that in...
I got frozen, I think, Artur, for a moment.
What?
You saw that?
No? What happened?
I got frozen on the camera. I don't know, for some reason. It's really cold here in Poland. That might be a reason, but I'm glad to be...
It must be so cold, the camera freezes, right?
Yes.
All right. So... yeah, what I was saying, I already forgot. Anyway, the point is, everybody is following everybody, right, at professional chess. I remember. And since this position is so-called old tier with some fresh ideas, I think that all of the major discoveries in modern chess have been discovered. I do think so, right? I mean, all of the main ideas have been discovered, and it's all about finding the nuances, finding the order of the moves, get a slightly better version, pawn here, pawn there, right? But still, all the structures, they are known. And I think that whoever is working for Lagno discovered that there's this interesting idea to get some sort of a French. The pawn on c3 secures the pawn on d4 with a very easy kingside attack, and that's how this whole line was brought up. I guess we're going to see how the game's going to continue.
Yeah, very interesting. Now rook to g3, bishop to h6, now queen to g4. Those three moves can end the black's position right away if you don't react somehow. And Artur, I had this opening yesterday, the title Tuesday, and out of nowhere I got checkmated. It is so dangerous opening if you just sleep the attention for a second. There can be, because white has a lot of resources. You might think that the light square bishop is off the board. There will be like less dangerous to the king, but this rook on the third rank queen, dark square bishop and the knight, and if needed also h-pawn, can all of them start to attack the king side. And for me, what is really unpleasant, the pawn on e5. This pawn controls f6 square, very important square, where the knight can never go and where the bishop can never go to guard g7 weakness. So at this point, black has this weakness g7, and white is definitely going to attack this weakness, and then at the point you play g6, then the dark squares are weakened, and then h7 pawn is also very much weakened. So to avoid all of this, I think it's now time to think either f6 move or f5 move, just to stop any kind of attack on the side. And
I'm pretty obvious that it's going to be f6. I mean, it's got to be f6, because if you play g6, you are pretending there's no attack, and since this is still a prep, I think Tan Zhongyi is trying to figure out at which moment do you play f6 to slow down. Might as well play right now, right? Might as well even play f6 right away, and I think we might see something along the lines of probably take, because I think f4 takes. There's no kingside attack. I don't think so, because now that f5 for black is open, it doesn't look very strong. I might be wrong, though. So I would assume that white is going to take it, put the knight on d3, and somehow try to, in the long grind, capitalize on this weakness in e5. It doesn't look much. There's also the knight c5 threat. Maybe b6 has to be played. White could increase the control of this square with something like f4, bishop d2, queen g4, rook e1. Maybe this is Lagno's idea all along, right? So yeah, that's what I would guess, really. Let's not blunder knight e4, of course, at some point. So still a lot of options here for black. All right, what do we do, Keti? Do we go back to the other game and check it?
Yeah, we should do that. We should do that because today games are progressing so fast. We have to catch up with the with all the progress which is happening. So let's take a look. Last time we saw this game was bishop on b7. This is move 8.
Right. By the way, completely forgot before we delve in the nuances of this game, I would like to once again welcome all of the viewers who are watching this. And me and Keti, we are following the chat, both on YouTube and Twitch channel. And in case you have some interesting insights, we'd really appreciate it, or any questions you would like to ask, you can absolutely do it. You can do it either on Twitter, or you can do it here in the chat. It's going to be a little easier for us to follow. And yeah, we could also discuss it, because I do believe at some point the pace of these games is going to be a little slower, because once again, to remind you, what's the time control? 90 minutes for 40 moves, 30 minutes after 40 moves plus 30 seconds. So these games are going to last a while.
That's true. And we already have very nice cooperation with the chat, and there has been sent the PGN and the whole game in our Twitch chat of Dubov and Mamedov, and we can take a look at that later on when we get back to the game of Katerina Lagno and Tan Zhongyi to take a look what has happened in there. But before we go there, let's take a look what is happening here. According to the clock, what I can see, it is more even time for these two players, two Alexandras, rather than in the other match where Katerina Lagno takes some advantage on the clock.
Right, indeed. So the position still feels very Lopez-ish, if I can say that, right? After a4, bishop b7, here Goryachkina decided to play d3, d6, and bishop d2. I mean, this bishop d2 idea, it's been around for a while. I don't know, is it exactly this position, but this was... I want to contribute this to the Ukrainian Grandmaster Igor Kovalenko. I think he was one of the first who played this bishop d2 idea in one of the topical other Rai Lopez lines, and it was very quickly picked up. But again, I might be wrong, because I remember he told me this like a year or 2 years ago about this very interesting idea. And the point is stopping knight a5. So after bishop d2, it looks a bit weird move. Let's say black does something like, whatever, let's say h6. I could play knight c3. I'm attacking the pawn on b4. Let's say you play b4. Knight e5. Now this pawn once again is under attack. And black is, having some issues. Because this bishop on d5 is very strong, pinning the bishop on b7. Bishop b4 is a very nice idea. So this bishop d2 stopping early, once again, let's go back here, stopping early knight a5 idea. If we don't do this, let's say h3, knight a5, bishop a2, c5 is one of the most traditional ways to continue. And that's why after this bishop d2, black has some issues to continue development. And this prompted Kosteniuk to play b4, which makes sense, of course, right? You limit this knight on b1. It cannot easily jump to c3. So c3 played by Goryachkina, and rook b8 is a pawn sacrifice. Look at that.
C takes b4 is for sure an extra pawn, but can we just pass the move with the bishop? And how white is going to take the pawn under the control? Like, next move is knight b4, and I think we cannot really stop that happening with white.
I mean, yeah, I guess I could still play bishop c4, right? I still see a way how I can try to keep the pawn, at least for a while. Take it, I could snatch it, bishop a6, rook b2. I have an outside pass pawn, but is this enough? And again, from Goryachkina's point of perspective, you also assume this is prep. I mean, again, this is a prep. You don't play rook b8, you don't improvise it over the board. So Kosteniuk definitely has seen this before, maybe not exactly in this very position, maybe a very similar position. So also for Goryachkina, it's not very obvious choice that she should accept this pawn, because I think she has some other choices as well. And now knight a5, if that's an issue, I could play a5. Keti, I never really understood when white has to play a5 when he doesn't. It's very, very tricky stuff. Because you stop knight a5, right? But sometimes after a5, for example, black plays queen d7, you have access to bishop a4.
Right.
And there's some issues, or maybe the rook on e8 stands, you play bishop a4, you pin it, there's some d4, d5 ideas. But it's so tricky, I don't really understand it, because, for example, if you play a5, maybe after bishop a8, rook b5, this pawn is under attack. And then the white sacrifices this pawn. So, yeah, that's pretty much the modern chess here. But this particular position, Keti, feels very fresh to me. I mean, I don't remember it.
Yeah, it seems that now White has some of the choice. Oh, she is taking the pawn on b4. She accepts this pawn sacrifice. I expect next move from Kosteniuk to happen right away, because very likely this is her preparation, as Artur just mentioned. Artur, here black can play bishop to a8 and also bishop to c8 to make sure that this pawn on a6 will not be hanging. And what happens after that?
After bishop c8, well, I don't know. I just noticed this move as soon as you mentioned it. Maybe there's an idea to play b5. Oh,
b5,
wait.
a takes b5, a takes b5,
Something
knight
like this.
c3.
Ah, knight c3. I thought about pinning this guy here.
Yeah, it's also possible. Rook
Maybe
b6.
maybe it's not much, yeah?
Rook to a6, probably.
But I have a feeling that White has achieved more at the queen side, because there's more space. I mean, the pieces are very active, despite the fact that this pawn on b2 is slightly vulnerable. It feels... I don't know what it feels, really, to be honest, but it's interesting. But anyway, bishop a8 was played by Kosteniuk.
Okay, bishop to a8. And this is another backup thing, bishop c4, right? White can play here. But I think b5 is still possible with the same ideas.
Right.
Of the pieces.
Right, that actually makes perfect sense. You know, Keti, I suspect that Goryachkina with White is still under some prep, because she played it rather quickly, right? How much time did she spend? Something like 3-4 minutes? And she played it rather quick. The c takes on b4. You don't go for some major changes if you haven't seen something very similar before. So I think she knows some ideas, maybe not exactly in this position. She just perhaps remembered the prep, or she compared it very quickly. Let's say you have the same position in the prep at h3, h6, right? It can happen. And then you compare. I mean, how does it feel? In this position, I have h3, h6, or let's say we have h3, rook e8 included. How does it feel? How does it compare? And if that position, if that was working, what's the big difference here? And chess professionals are doing this all the time, right? So they see some very interesting idea, then compare how it was working in another line, assuming, I mean, they have even the knowledge. But I'm sure that Goryachkina has it.
For Kosteniuk, it's very important to equalize the game and not to get worse position, because yesterday she was struggling in really bad position. We can remember that she was almost paralyzed on the queen side, and on the king side she had a very weak and open king. However, she managed to save the game, and that was for sure very nice save for her. But imagine you have to defend 2 games in a row. That is just emotionally very, very difficult, and it takes a lot of your energy. But the good thing is that tomorrow all the players gonna have a day off, so they can just recover all these losses of the energy they are having those 2 matches. Like especially for the players who are defending, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, this is very, very important. Of course, the schedule is. Dear viewers, maybe you're not seeing it, but they're not only playing the games, right? And we slightly discussed it yesterday also, is that what is not seen is the work behind the scenes, right? The input work, how they're preparing, and team discussions probably, right? I imagine that probably for for Kosteniuk and Goryachkina, they're both Alexandras again. They have coaches, at least one coach with them. And there's definitely team meetings, discussions, although you have done some not some, but incredible prep at home. I do think that coaches are also working there, because now you see, oh, she plays the Berlin, right? Okay, now I need to work on this day and night, right? So there's a lot of discussions about it, and there's not much time to enjoy it. And these games, they take away a lot of energy, and that's why after 2 games, a rest day is deserved.
Yeah, in fact, Artur, to what I have learned, it is confirmed that the player can have +1 spot at the tournament for the coach or the second. That's official. So if they want to bring 3 coaches, then that's a different story. But they can take 1 coach with them, and the covers will be paid by FIDE, as I understand. In Monaco, Musachuk sisters had 1 coach, and their regime was so hard. I remember that after the 4th game where Maria Musachuk lost against Lei Tingji, the next day at the breakfast, she was very smiley. She was shining in a very good mood. That's something that you don't expect from a person who lost the match and who's out from the competition. But I felt like all this stress was released from her. And she said that the schedule was so tough for them. It was so much of the preparation all the time that she hasn't seen it all around. She has not been outside yet. And also she has not used these facilities that the hotels has, like spa or swimming pool or the gym, which usually people are liking to take it. And she said, like, finally I can now just go outside and see where we are. And she was really felt like relieved. And then I understood how much of the job they are putting for each round.
I can relate to that, Keti. I absolutely do, because this really rings a bell, because from my personal experience, it just brings me up the memories from playing the Baku Olympia 2016 from Team Latvia. We had a very good team. We were really seriously preparing for all the games. And you could imagine, I mean, Olympiad, I think it was something like 11 rounds. And every single day, the rhythm is this. I mean, you wake up in the morning, you eat breakfast, not team, but there's individual preparation. You prepare for the opponent. Then you go eat dinner. You go to play the game. You play 5-6 hours. You come back in the evening. You eat evening supper, team meeting, preparation, go sleep, wake up, breakfast, preparation, lunch, game, dinner, preparation, sleep, breakfast, preparation, and that is non-stop. I mean, this is insane, right? It's very, very difficult. And what you mentioned, for example, these spas and amenities that the hotel offers, sometimes you just even notice it, right? I mean, if you're really into it and if you really, really care about a very good result, you want to give everything that you have, right? And I'm not absolutely surprised what you said about Musachuk, right? That she was a bit relieved. Of course, she lost it, right? But now, I mean, what's done is done, right? And you can finally see what's around and enjoy it.
These players are playing so many competitions, and I think they are treating even the losses very nicely and in a professional way. Like, what is very important, not to lose yourself after losing the game, right? Because when, not in this one, but in Pool A, we had 2 decisive results in 2 matches. And imagine if you are not strong mentally, you're going to lose the match before the 4th round, right? You can lose it all. So it's very important for all these players to get over rather fast. Like, I think Magnus Carlsen is a very good example of that he can so easily get over at least it's visibly is like that we don't know really what process he's going through. But then after some bad results, he can totally come back and win the tournament. And I think if a chess player can have that skill, that's something extra. And you always have something extra above to the other players.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely very, very mentally tough, physically and mentally tough for all the players. Also, especially for the women players as well, right? They're more emotional, more principled players than men.
I would say we were talking about this, Arthur, yesterday, that there are more results in the women tournament, and we have this Sofia rule, right? So basically, for women's tournament, the Sofia rule is not really applies as much as to the Open tournament, right? Because very often men like to make some draws and to save this energy for the other part of the game. So they are kind of dividing the energy for the maybe last round, or maybe it depends what's the strategy. And meanwhile, women are mostly fighting in all the games, and they don't have this kind of strategy to kind of make a draw.
I feel like I have to object somewhere as a representative of men, really. But okay, whatever, right? But I get the point, right? I mean, it depends really on the person.
You don't make a draw, like, okay, like if there's 2 rounds a day, you don't make first draw easy in the morning and then play in the second round?
It's not so simple. I guess it depends on the situation, but maybe indeed men are more accustomed to make short draws. Think about energy, think about the big picture, but okay, I mean, this is really a debatable topic. Anyway, let's check what's happening in the actual game. And after knight c3, rook b8, after a couple of minutes of thought, was the response of Kosteniuk. And I think it's a fair assumption that knight e5 is about to follow. Because I think the big idea of Goryachkina here is after knight e5, take it, put the bishop on d5, put the bishop on c3, and claim that white has slightly better pieces. And I guess that rook takes on b2 is probably a huge blunder due to queen c1, double attack. And yeah, check this out. Rook b6, bishop e3, black loses something.
Yeah, that's somehow black's pieces are not well coordinated. Bishop on a8, rook on b6. Yeah, that's not a pretty position. Arthur, if black is not taken on b2, that's obviously the very bad blunder here in this position. Sorry, just a move before. There is some tricky thing. Like, can we take with a pawn on d5? Like knight d5, pawn d5. And the idea here is that you don't have a7, a5 squares. You have d4 and b4. If you go knight to d4, then you're gonna drop rook to a8. Sorry, knight b4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this definitely is an option. I didn't mention it first because I felt bishop takes on d5 is simply the more natural choice. Sometimes, indeed, yeah, e takes on d5 is an option, and you rightfully said that knight b4 is also not there. But is this going to be enough? I mean, if white doesn't have an immediate shot, then black just is pretty solid, no?
Yeah. To be honest, this bishop on b3 locked up by d5 pawn doesn't look so pretty.
Mm-hmm. But this is something you have to consider at some point. I absolutely agree, because there could be some circumstances, let's say here, we include some kind of a move where knight e5, e takes on d5 is working even better. But I think, Keti, to be honest, it looks like bishop d5 is the move, because here rook a8 is suddenly a big threat, right? And you are threatening to win 2 minor pieces for the rook. So now if you play knight e4, this is not very obvious, because check this out. I mean, for example, I don't know how accurate is this. Takes, probably, I'm not sure. I keep the open A file open. Let's say b4. I have a feeling that white has achieved something, because the pawn structure looks more favorable to white. I have a potential target on d4, and after something like c5, I could either organize a passed pawn with b5 or claim that I still have the better pawn structure, a pawn majority at a king side, while the pawn on c5 is blocked. So in a very, very quick...
And a dark color is the bishop and also my bishop, so potentially I can also attack that in the end game.
Right, so I think this is the idea, definitely, of Goryachkina. So knight e5 makes perfect sense, unless, of course, after knight e5, we can now start to argue about this in earnest. Black is not obliged to take on d5, right? And the black can play something like bishop b7, right? Remove the bishop on a8 under attack, and as beautiful as this knight is on d5, there's no immediate threat, so maybe white plays bishop c3, d4, or knight e2, knight c4, and claims some sort of advantage. Either way, I like it. Either way, it looks like Goryachkina has gotten a better position out of the opening.
Yep, and did she made a move or not?
95 is on the board, right?
95 is on the board, wow.
It's a brilliant idea. So I, once again, can only go back to what I said earlier, the c takes on b4. Not totally sure if Goryachkina was still in the prep. Maybe she was like, sometimes it goes like this. 3 years ago, we had this training camp in Moscow with the coach, and he was showing me this line. What was in this line, right? And you try to remember, okay. I think the idea was to play, and you try to remember that. So not necessarily you have done this line yesterday or day before yesterday, even the last month. You have done it some time ago, and that's why having a very good memory is a good quality for a chess player.
That is for sure. I think all the chess players kind of have some kind of like good memory in a way. The problem for most of the players is that you have seen so many positions, so many openings already that very often you are mixing things up. And there's this idea here, there's that idea there, you have all the knowledge of that, and then you need to find out the correct one for that structure and that position. And that's why it takes sometimes a little bit more time to figure it out. What is happening? So knight d5 is on the board. Kosteniuk just got back and she just saw this move now. She has to deal with this knight on d5. She has to deal with the pin if knight takes d5 has happened here. So shall we just go to the other game? Quickly check out how Tan Zhongyi responded to Katerina's opening preparation.
Let's absolutely do it. And indeed, it was already f6 played after knight e1. After knight e1, black immediately played f6, which I felt has to be responded. We discussed this. I also do believe that e takes on f6 is critical because f4, it seems that white's attack is over. Rook takes on f6. Rook e2. Okay, this is slightly mysterious move.
I think she wanted to open up the diagonal for the bishop on g5, like bishop g5. I think if white trades the dark square bishop, then plays knight to d3 to go for e5 square, c5 square, that's something slightly better.
Right, but she could have played knight e3 right away, right? So it's not very obvious, Keti, to me. I tell you honestly. For example, here, why do you need to trade the bishops? Why? Yeah, I get the point, right? You want to play knight e3 and f4, and when you do it, then you have slightly worse bishop. Sort of.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe that's the big idea. Maybe it's the part of the greater concept that she trades the bishop. Now she plays knight e3 and she wants to play f4 and the bishop is gone. And that's also why the Chinese grandmaster is very fast with the counterplay at queenside. She wants to play b4 and remove this support from the pawn on d4, because after b4 takes, the pawn on d4 starts to become vulnerable, and it just doesn't look much to white. I mean, the pieces are disappearing left and right very quickly. Does it seem anything serious to you?
Shall we take a look what happens, for instance, after knight to c5 to chase the queen to d6, and at this point to play queen to d3. So I'm attacking the pawn on b5 and also kind of targeting h7 if I have some time. And you probably want to push b4 right here.
I think so. I think so, Keti. There might be also an option at some point to go for some sack with e5. I don't know. I can't immediately tell that it's got to be b4, because one tempo could make a huge difference. For example, b4, rook e1, targeting the pawn. Let's say black does something like whatever, I don't know, rook e8. And there's some pressure, right?
Yeah, there is a pressure here.
But if you go back here, once again, what if I go aggressively e5? Queen b5?
Yeah.
Take it, I guess. Oh, wait, maybe I don't take immediate. Maybe after queen b5, I play rook b8. I sack the pawn. And I kind of wanted to make a point. I have a compensation. To be honest, Keti, I have no clue. Take, here.
Artur, you know what I'm thinking? Maybe queen a6 is somewhere a very aggressive move to pin the knight on 6th rank instead of queen d3.
That makes sense. You're right. Yeah, that's a good point, of course. So now he takes, you take on e7 and just win the knight. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, maybe not rook b8. It was just an idea, really. So if I'm playing with white, I would definitely consider that the opponent might actually sacrifice the pawn. Maybe she doesn't have to do it. So a5, knight c5, queen d3, Keti, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Shall we also try something started with queen to b3 here?
Okay, what about b4?
b4 and rook to e1. So I'm threatening knight c5 now.
This looks even better because I keep control against e5 threat, right? So my knight on c5 is not hanging. There's some control. So let's say I play a4.
Yeah, a4 and queen
wherever you
c2,
put it.
for instance. Yeah.
Yeah, let's say here. This feels like some achievement, yeah? There's some achievement for white. It's not much, to be honest. I don't think this is anything very serious. Black can still play something like queen d6, and I don't think white is going to want to trade the knights. f4 probably slightly weakens the king. There is some minor pressure, but is this anything real? This is the question. So
I think, how about knight to c5? Wait, you like this idea of e5, right?
Yeah, I think so. Black wants to play e5.
Yeah, okay. How about rook to e3 to get this rook on the 3rd rank again?
What does he do there?
Yeah, rook e3.
Yeah.
The idea, I was thinking about queen to c2, rook to h3 to look for some weaknesses, yeah? If you play h6, then I have this g6 very nice square. Maybe I'll get my knight somewhere there. If you play g6, then I can get back my rook and then start to h4, h5. And my point is that I'm the one who controls everything, and I'm the one who makes these threats, and I'm feeling safe here. As for the moment, I don't really see how black is going to attack my d4 pawn, and center is also stabilized.
Well, I could agree. I'm not sure about this entire attacking sequence, to be honest, but I agree that for black, it's difficult to play e5. It's difficult to target the pawn on d4, right? Because queen c7, queen b6 leaves the pawn on d6 under attack. And maybe you either go for this attack or even increase some positional pressure like g3, king g2, knight f4, maybe. This could be in the cards. This is something. And I think that also for Tan Zhongyi, she is going to want to play some quality moves. So what was it? Once again, queen b3. Yeah, and dear chat says Lagno seems to be out of the prep. Yeah, she's definitely out of the prep. I mean, maybe her opening file here was that after knight e3, maybe even here, black does something like b6, knight e3. Okay, let me just put it on the board. But let's say black would play here, something like this, and her opening file would end something like, there's some pressure. That's it. I mean, this is how far the preparation goes, right? Of course, you cannot prepare everything. And now black instead plays something aggressive like b5, traded the bishops according to the plan, put the knight on d3, and now you simply have to work on your own, right? Because you still traded the bishop as you're supposed to. You have some weaknesses here, but how do you capitalize on them? And that's something you have to work on yourself on the board, right? So not very obvious at all.
Yeah, and also, Artur, to think from Lagno's perspective of the preparation, why don't you choose the opening which gives you slightly better position where you are the one who makes all the decision, right? It's just not maybe so big advantage here for white, but there is some pleasant situation here with this knight here on d3. And also it pretty much depends like how Tan Zhongyi would react if she would not playing f6 at the right moment. Katerina could take huge advantage, and we know that.
Yeah, I think so. Here we go back to this moment, right? If black doesn't play f6, I mean, okay, I can show very quickly something like rook c8, rook g3, knight a5. This looks incredibly risky here. h4, you put the beautiful knight on c4, h5, knight f3, bishop g5. This is really, really dangerous, right? And that's why I think also for Katerina, she expected that black is going to counter it with a typical f6 idea to bring more pieces to the kingside defense, right? So this was to be expected. I think she's simply not ready for this aggressive pawn push. And if she's not ready, by the way, you know what that means, Keti? Probably it's not supported by the engines. And I remember, who was it? I think it was Fabi Corona, who once said in an interview, when... how was it? How did he say? When your opponent is deep in prep, you make a move and he starts to think. You have conflicting feelings. First feeling, hooray. I mean, he's out of the prep, right? I managed to do it. But the second feeling is he doesn't know this. And if he doesn't know this, engines hate it. Right? Probably. Engines hate it. Not a good move, right? So probably I just made a bad move. And this knowledge is supported by both players, right? Both of them probably know it if they think about it. And also for maybe in Katerina's mind, she's like, there was no such maneuver, right? I mean,
there is heavy psychology in that.
But
it's so true. It's so true. But to be honest, as a chess player, when I see that my opponent is in a preparation, I make a move and I stop my opponents to make next moves and speed, that makes me a little bit relief. Really, just the fact that my opponent stopped for a bit to make next moves.
Right. All right.
Artur, we do have this game of Dubov. Shall we take a look, because we're not really receiving any new moves here? So there was a rook e3, right?
Okay.
At this point, this game has happened this month. Black decided, Mamedov, to play bishop to b4.
Okay.
And now knight to e1. And black goes h6. Knight to d3, bishop goes on e7, and after f3, knight goes to g5. We have knight to f2, f6, and f4. So as a result, knight went on e4.
Oh, he sacrificed the pawn.
Yeah, takes and queen h5, king f8, and this game was won by black in some minutes, because at this point, this position here is better for black.
Well, it's not very obvious, tell you honestly, because the black king is quite vulnerable. The queens are on the board, but I guess the development matters a bit more.
Yeah, and the point here is that the d4 pawn is hanging, and you cannot really guard that with the knight and the bishop. You can take rook e4, right, to guard this pawn with the rook and also take the pawn. But now black has f5 move.
Yeah, this starts to look really good. I mean, when you tell it like that, here, knight e4, this is a big threat. There's no attack. The king is feeling pretty secure. Yeah, now it's obvious, right? I think also, I think this was some bliss game, was it? Right. So Dubov, I don't think he knew this idea, because I'm also fairly sure that bishop b4 was probably an inspiration by Mamedyarov over the board. It stops knight e2, and after knight c3, maybe the big idea was that he's going to take for the bishop. I don't really know. Takes, and then he keeps the knight on e4, although the idea of knight e1 f3 still remains. Right, so we might never know.
Bishop e4 is a really mysterious
very
move.
Mysterious, right? I guess he wants to take with the bishop, right? Otherwise, after knight c3, if he takes with the knight, right, here...
You lose a tempo.
You lose a tempo for nothing, which makes no sense at all, right? So probably his idea was to take with the bishop. Anyway, let's jump back to the game. So here, after a5, nothing has really happened. In the other game... Is there more? Oh, e-Neiksans on d5 is on the board. Look at that.
Oh.
It's not bishop d5. I was so sure it's going to be bishop d5. E takes on d5 is a bit mysterious. Okay, I mean...
Now she takes I think she has something prepared. There should be some follow-up right away after this move. Otherwise, why to keep this bishop on b3 and a pawn on d5, right?
I don't know, Keti. Maybe the idea is play bishop c4, b4, b5. Now I start to look at this, looks very interesting. For example, here. How do you stop me? Because if you take it, that's a blunder, right? Hop, hop, two bishops. And although I have some background issues here, I don't see how black can capitalize on this. Maybe here, and I go back. Yeah, I'm in time, right? I'm in time to defend everything, and there's no threats. And rook b1, I just give away the queen for two rooks with strategically winning position. So I think after bishop c4, Keti, here, black probably want to deal with the bishop. Now, I think, maybe I'm wrong, of course. Wouldn't be the first time.
Maybe rook a7 even there to stop rook a8 happening.
You're afraid of rook a8. That
He was not considering
no,
that.
but I just show the idea. What maybe rook a7? I just wanted to show this idea, right? So maybe there's some idea for Goryachkina to pressure the pawn on c7.
Rook a7, bishop a5, for instance.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is the big idea. And if black stops it with something like, where was this? Let's say, let me go move back. Oh, sorry. Takes here. She plays c6. Then takes b4. White is simply up a pawn, right? I mean, these are double pawns, and this is definitely
better
feels
position
prep.
for white.
No,
it is.
Yeah, it's better position. It definitely feels like some sort of a prep. Or, I mean, Goryachkina is just very strong, which is not a big surprise, of course.
Yeah, she's for sure. I just checked with the engine, and all these moves are the first line, starting with c takes b4, the pawn sacrifice that black had. Starting from that point, this is the first line, and then after bishop a6, b5 is the first line, what she has played, and then knight c3 is also first line. Here, knight d5, and it takes d5 is also the engine line here. And the idea is that after knight d4, knight takes d4, it takes d4. Here, white plays bishop c4.
But she played queen c2 already.
Yeah. Oh, she played queen c2. Oh, okay.
But this must be the same idea.
The engine was saying what you just suggested earlier. Bishop c4 and b4 is the best move here before b5 and to go to that line.
It makes sense, right? But also queen c2. I'm a bit surprised because I think that white shouldn't be concerned about c6. The bishop on b3 is feeling rather odd. And after queen c2, Goryachkina just makes sure there's not going to be c6, and still probably a fair chance that after bishop b7, the game could continue with something like, as you suggested, Keti, here, rook a7. Yeah, by the way, there's no bishop c8. Maybe this is the idea. Oh, wait,
because of rook c7?
But, oh my goodness, you have to calculate this. And yeah, we haven't mentioned in the chat this idea of b4 is not new. There's been a Wojciech's game. I'm sure somebody has played it before. I haven't seen it. I'll tell you honestly, I haven't really seen it. But since Goryachkina played it, I'm sure that she has seen this in some game. And now I guess I cannot take on c7 because
why
the
we
bishop...
can't take? The rook e7 is there.
It is, yeah. That's a very, very good point. And if I take it, you
Rook
take
e7,
it.
I think from e1. Rook is hanging.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess this is okay. But this is also okay. So also Goryachkina's idea definitely looks
Artur,
very serious.
What I think here, rook is hanging, right? You play rook to b8. Oh.
I already closed it. Just a second. Where was this? You mean rook a7, here bishop c8, yeah?
And at this point, in the very, very last position after rook b3, right?
Okay.
Here, rook is hanging, so you have to play rook to b8. And white can go with bishop to a5, and now you want to play rook a7 and trap the queen.
Checkmate.
Checkmate.
Nice. Now, this already is looking really a problem position because black is down a pawn, the white rooks are in the 7th rank. Not a good position. Queen c2, I like it. I like it. To be honest, I think bishop c2, b4, b5, this is what I would have played. I understand the reasoning. Looks very human. So bishop b7, rook a7, I think this is what Goryachkina wants. And maybe black needs to figure out how to do push the c6. For example, remove the bishop. Let's say you play something like whatever, rook a7, and there could be an aggressive way to deal with problems with some queen b6. I'm guessing, really. I have no idea. So queen b6, attacking here, and
getting pawn back on c6 and also trading the queens. Very likely.
So. I guess so. c7, take it, rook b8, and white is super better. Unless I hallucinated something big time. Maybe black plays d5 and says this is nothing. Because I'm closing your bishop, you have a passed pawn, but I have very nice double pawns in the center. Don't really know. But I think Kosteniuk's position still should be bearable. It's not so bad. But feels that what's pressing.
Shall we do something like bishop a5 ideas? Like, for instance, bishop f6 or bishop g5, and then bishop a5 to stop the pawn going forward and pin the pawn.
You mean, now what do you suggest for black to play?
Yeah, maybe bishop f6, for instance.
Maybe bishop g5, but why do we play so passive?
Yeah, bishop g5 is also a move, but white will respond bishop a5 anyway.
And if I sacrifice this pawn, maybe I don't need to defend it, Maybe I can play some aggressive move like queen d7. And I don't think you can really take. This has to be cocklet, right? Take, rook c8, rook a7. I don't know what this is. But now black is threatening to play c6. I don't know. Queen c2 looks okay, right? And maybe Goryachkina's thought process was a bit deeper. So, of course, she doesn't know what the engine says. Maybe the thought process was she definitely saw bishop c4, but she felt that this is not such an obvious position. Maybe this was the reason why she didn't do this.
She's stopping the pawn coming forward on the c file with this queen c2. I agree with that.
Maybe this is just, I made a very shallow evaluation, right? I thought b4, b5 looks great, right? But black is very fast with d5, opening the bishop on e7. For example, let's say something like, I don't really know, queen c2, d5, bishop a2, queen d7. I mean, black is, unless, of course, I'm missing some shot here, black is just very active, puts the bishop on d6, and despite the fact that white has a passed pawn, it's not moving anywhere. So, yeah, they're a very, very serious move, of course, and Kosteniuk is in the thinking tank. Of course, she has to think.
She has to think now and use this moment. Once again, in this match, she's just a slight worse, and she is the one who has to worry to not to get the worst position. And but this not necessarily makes Goryachkina the favorite in this match for sure, because this position still is easy to handle indeed. Shall we take a look at the Lagno and Tan Zhongyi game? Let's see what updates we do have after like 10 minutes.
There's no updates. There's no moves.
No updates at all. Wow.
Yeah, it's a long thing here.
I wanted to say 10 minutes and actually said 10 minutes, but I think Lagno is spending about 20 minutes off the clock.
Right. Yeah, I mean, probably this means that things are not very obvious for Katerina. She's trying to figure out something she suggested. Something you suggested with this knight c5, queen d3, or queen b3, rook e1, not very obvious, and that's why there's the big thing.
That is right. And at this point, we can see Lagno being in a deep thought here after a5. Tan Zhongyi created this counterplay on the queen side, and she's not play some passive move. She's not going to wait to her opponent, but instead she wants to create a weakness on d4 to have a target. And at some point, knight is already attacking the pawn on d4. Queen can get on a7 to attack the pawn. And as we can see, this move resulted 20 minutes to spend for Katerina Lagno. And while we're in the playing venue, Artur, it's maybe a good time to shout out the sponsors of the event. You can see all these logos right now on the banner. And we have mentioned that in this event, we have 70,000 euro prize fund, where all the players already guaranteed 20,000 euro just to be part of this one. And then later on, we have the finals with 2 participants with 110,000 euro prize fund. So that's impossible without the sponsors, right? Establishment Lab is one of the partners of the FIDE Women's Candidate Tournament, a global medical technology company, and the International Chess Federation have made a landmark partnership agreement especially aimed to support women's chess events. Among the events sponsored by Establishment Lab and its brand Motiva are the FIDE Women's World Team Championship, a FIDE Women's Candidate Tournament, FIDE Women's World Rapid and Blitz Tournament, and then it will be also FIDE Women's World Championship match, which will be ahead of us. So far, we know only one participant, and this is the current women champion, Zhu Wenjun from China. And this is the event where we can define another participant and the challenger of the current women world champion. So far, we don't know. We can predict that one of a good candidate of that is Lei Tingji, who has already qualified in the pool A, but someone from pool B out of these 4 participants will face a match against Lei Tingji later next few months. So a lot of excitement ahead of us, and then the World Championship match, which is one of the biggest events for the chess players and for the chess spectators.
Yeah, and Keti, let's also talk about the booming chess in Uzbekistan, right? Because as all of you already know that this summer, when was this, in August, right? Uzbekistan, amazing talent team, won the World Chess Olympiad quite in a sensational manner. Mm-hmm. And they're also awarded to organize the next, no, sorry, not the next one, but 2026. Yeah, if I'm not terribly mistaken with the number, 2026 World Chess Olympiad. Pardon me if I said the year wrong.
No, it's correct. 2014 will be in Budapest,
right.
Hungary, and then it will.
And chess is on the rise in Uzbekistan, and it's really great to see, right? That there are these amazing tournaments, amazing teams. They have really great coaches, and if you look at the list of the leading youngsters in age groups in the World Championships, no big surprises. There's among the top players always somebody from Uzbekistan, right? So this is great. And also that's why, of course, makes sense, right? That the candidates tournament for women, Pool B, is held exactly in Uzbekistan, right? And again, in the ancient city of Khiva, with a great tradition. And as already we discussed this earlier in the broadcast, there's this open tournament, 3 groups, 206 players playing together with the ladies, right? So that there's a lot of socializing, and it's a big chess event in Uzbekistan.
Yeah, why not? It's indeed a great festival of chess, and for sure a lot of players and youngsters, they want to see those grandmasters who we have now on the board, and they can be a role model for the little chess players when they see former world champion competing, having a tournament in the same venue as you are right now in the same hotel. That is indeed a huge thing. Artur, we have received a move from Katerina Lagno after 20 minutes plus of thinking. She has made rook to b1 move.
Yeah, I guess the idea is to discourage black to play b4, and this, of course, begs the question, can black still do it, right? So let's check it. For example, after b4, black insists on the idea, c takes on b4, knight takes on d4 could be an idea. Normally, white would have access to either knight e5 or knight c5, counterattacking the queen, having a discovered attack on the knight. However, there's the knight e2 check, right? So this intermezzo check is very important. So the big question is, does white have anything real? And maybe after rook d2, Lagno realized that she gave up the pawn on d4, but she has a chance to organize an outside pass pawn on the queen side. There could be some advantage, right? Because now, a takes on b4, is it possible or not? Not really sure, because again, you need to calculate knight c5 or knight e5. Not very obvious, but let's say knight... Yeah, I guess you just take it, yeah? Because knight c5 is queen d6, and the black seems to be all right.
You can just take it on b4.
Yeah, so take it. Yeah, this is all right for black. And something like this actually makes sense. So once again, let's check how did this happen. Let's say I play b4. Of course, white is not obliged to take. White could do something else, but after rook b1, it makes sense to take. Knight e4, probably... Yeah, I guess rook d2, maybe rook e3. Maybe rook e3 is the move. Maybe rook e3. With the idea to play knight e5, win the knight. Except knight c5. Because knight e5, I protect the knight.
Yeah, but knight c5 wins the knight on d4, is not it?
Right. And that wins the knight, because queen a7, I just snatched the knight. So something like this could be indeed Lagno's idea. Just very quickly trying to understand, because also you have to pardon us, the commentators. Katerina has spent here 20 minutes, right? She's more depth into the position. She has worked out the nuances, but I think we still can understand what she's thinking about, and I think she is going to take on b4 if black is going to play b4.
Our chat on Twitch says that they don't expect rook to b1. Also, I didn't really expect this move to happen. But seems to me that there is some very deep thought in this. So after b4, we have discussing about pawn takes b4, but how about knight c5? Can we still do that move, knight c5, and now to take on b4? So pawn on d4 will no longer hang, and at this point, to be honest, what we had earlier with this idea to double the rooks on e-file and to have the slightly better position looks better to me, because now also rook on a8 is quite open and has some target on a-file. And the knight from c6 attacks the pawn on d4, guards the pawn on b4, controls c5 square. So I really like this knight on c6. So very likely this is not what Katia is considering to have on the board.
I think she's going to take on b4, assuming, of course, that if black is going to play b4. Alternatively, also for Tan Zhongyi, here's the trick. She could consider rook b8, protect the pawn, still threat on b4, but also, is rook b5 even a threat? And again, you have to kind of figure it out, because let's say black does something like h6, and if I rush immediately, rook takes on b5, there's knight e4. And that's a double discovered attack, right? So white simply loses material. And this is also what a good player is going to consider. Because here, after, let's say, h6 maybe is not really a useful move, there could be knight c5, and now you play rook b5, and you have all of these thoughts in your head. You're trying to picture them together. So I would definitely expect something like at least 10 minutes from Tan Zhongyi. Try to work out the details, because this is such a critical position where the quality of the moves is of paramount importance, and that's why she's taking a power sip. I wonder what she's drinking there.
So enjoying her cup of tea,
what?
I guess.
Yeah, a cup of what, actually, you know? Talking about the drinks, Keti, I mean, I guess for chess players, the most favorite drink is coffee, no?
Coffee or tea, it depends, I guess.
Coffee or tea, okay.
Yeah, something. You need to have some kind of drink, because when you're spending so much energy, and some people might think like, what are you spending by playing chess? Because it's always a topic of discussion. Like, it's not a sport like physical sport, and how you're losing the energy and all these calories. But in fact, we do, and we need the liquids to get right. So
Sure.
tea is something is really helpful for me, because sometimes in winter time, especially, it's getting really chilly for me in the playing venue. So tea is something which keeps me warm, and also just keeps me be very fresh. Coffee is something that a lot of chess players like to have. However, you cannot have like 3 cups of coffee every day during the game, right? Because it's too much of caffeine. And we can also see a lot of players just having a bottle of water alongside, or just a cup of a glass of the water, and all some kind of juice. What is your favorite, Artur?
I'm a coffee maniac.
Maniac.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I try to limit it. I try to switch to water, tea sometimes, right? But if I see a coffee, it's very difficult to say no, really. And then there's, of course, Magnus, who has his orange juice, right? But you need it. You need this nutrition, of course, during the game, some chocolate, of course, to have some extra energy. Some people like some fruits, right? Mm-hmm. You digest something to get something extra. You feel more comfortable. Right, of course.
Do you know how to reduce coffee, and how to try to do that?
How to do what? How to reduce coffee?
How to reduce coffee to get coffee?
I don't know. I guess
you have to run out from coffee and don't buy it, like I do.
All right.
And enjoy the tea.
Yeah, no, I also enjoy the tea. Anyway, we were just discussing the movements of Tan Zhongyi. She has made a move, by the way. She played
before. There we go. She played before. I just checked time on the clock from our video, which says that they both have 57 minutes at this point. So, Artur, at the beginning, Katerina took 20 minutes advantage on the clock, right? And then at this point, it's already equal. So... yeah, very often time also says a lot.
You guess you have to spend the time at some point, right? That's the good etiquette, right? I mean, you have to spend it. Otherwise, your coach is going to be mad at you why you're not spending time. But here, after b4, clearly this was the expectation of Katerina. So the first feeling when your opponent plays b4 is like, I want to double check what I was prepared to play, right? So, of course, Katerina is already ready to play. I think she's going to play c-dex on b4, but you just want to double check. Maybe with a fresher eyes, with the current positions, things start to look different. Sometimes some players start to have doubts, because if the opponent play b4, maybe I missed something, right? Again, a good time to double check, and you have still 56 minutes on the clock, of course, right? So it's a good idea to invest something like, I would say Katerina is going to spend 3 minutes, and she's going to take on b4.
Yeah, possible. So we have here the little walk from Tan Zhongyi. She is definitely still thinking about the position, and that's very often the way of the chess players to think about the game, not even being at the chessboard. And also we can see that Alexandra Kosteniuk is absent from the board, and meanwhile other Alexandra Goryachkina have played her move as well.
Yeah, I think we can immediately jump back to that as well, because here, pretty sure in something like 2-3 minutes, my apologies, Lagno is going to take on b4. In the meantime, we had exactly one move by Kosteniuk, bishop g5, trade bishop, and bishop a5, there you go. The idea, Keti, that you suggested, Goryachkina says no to the trade. And now I'm not really sure if this is even attack, because we discussed this queen d7, which looks extremely logical to me. because black wants to go away from the pin. Something like rook c8 looks incredibly passive, and I think Alexandra Kosteniuk is too strong to make such passive moves, even if this is not a bad move. So queen d7, probably again you want to double check. So bishop a5, when you play bishop g5, you expect it. It's not a surprise, right? Otherwise, what you're doing.
Yeah, you expect more that move than rook bishop g5 trade for sure.
Right. Yeah, and I think also that since this is such a very nice moment when the pace of the games getting slowed down, right? So we get on average something like one move every 5 minutes, maybe even longer.
Sometimes
20 minutes sometimes. Maybe let's just make the very first break of the day, right? And we'll be back in a couple of minutes. So in the meantime, I hope that all of you, the viewers, you're enjoying what you're seeing here. If you have some very interesting insights or questions, if you have questions to ask, I mean, please use the chat. Use either the YouTube chat or Twitch chat. Or you can also write on FIDE Twitter, ask any questions, right? And we'll do our best to answer it as soon as we are going to be back.
Welcome back, everyone, at the FIDE Women's Candidate Tournament Pool B. And today we have a round 1, game 2 in progress. We just passed the opening stage and got ourselves into the middle game, kind of end game positions. And here we are, Artur and Keti. We will take you guys to the chess games and gonna see some of the updates that we have during we got ourselves to the break. So Artur, is there anything interesting happening one of these 2 games?
It is, Keti, and of course, welcome back everybody who was watching. And I see there are some developments in the game of Goryachkina against Kosteniuk, and just when I was feeling the game is about to finish rather peacefully, so we left it. Where was this? Bishop g5, bishop a5, pinning this pawn. Queen d7 was played by Kosteniuk, sacrificing the pawn on c7. We didn't really calculate it, Keti, but the gut feeling is that black is okay, right? I guess, for example, bishop c7, rook c8. Wait, bishop c7, I just take on b3. It's really so simple. I just take on b3 and queen c7. Actually, I just missed that. Anyway, then white simply cannot do this. But check this out, Keti. Here, after queen e7, bishop a4 was the idea. And after queen f5, this pawn is going to be protected by bishop c6. And that's why here Kosteniuk is a little bit thinking, at least she was, because now after bishop c6, on c7 is becoming a serious target, while white can secure his queen side. The same cannot be said about the pawn on c7. And now I'm not so sure that this is such an obvious equality, because the pawn on c7 is seriously targeted, and if that falls, white could get a very large advantage.
Well said, and this is the position definitely black doesn't want to play. Bishop to c6 has just happened. If you don't take this bishop on c6, then somehow you have to deal with bishop c7 threat, which is on the board. Are you going to play rook to bishop to d8 to be so passive to guard this pawn? That's the question that Kosteniuk should ask to herself. Should I take the bishop first on c6? Should I play rook to c8? Or maybe there is something else, something more active defense? Is there a way to do so?
This is a very original idea by Goryachkina. I'm fairly sure that it's possible to miss. I don't know if Kosteniuk missed it or not. Maybe there was nothing better to be done anyway. I think that she's going to take on c6 probably, because how long are you going to allow this bishop stand on c6, which takes away a lot of critical squares? This is not what you want to do, right? But I guess you're going to have to. So after bishop c6, the big idea for white is to take with the pawn, not with the queen. And again, establish an outside, a potential pass pawn on the queen side. And if Kosteniuk has no really other choice, of course, she's going to play bishop d8. But I think that if I'm playing with black, this is the move I definitely do not want to make at all. So maybe I could be thinking about putting somehow the bishop on d6. But the big question is,
do I have time for that?
Yeah, you don't have time for that, I assume. I mean, of course, you have to calculate, right? Maybe you could still afford to include some sort of, okay, now I'm maybe reaching, but the point is d5, take it, rook c8, and assume that this pawn falls by force. But I think it doesn't, right? You just play something like bishop g3, and now this pawn is as healthy as it is, right? And you secure with c7, or rook a6, or b4, b5, and this idea probably is not going to work. But from the Kosteniuk's perspective, I think she would love to put the bishop on d6. Easier said than done.
That's right. For that, you need to move to happen right now. Pawn on c7 is hanging. And also, I was considering, is there a way to sacrifice this pawn and get c6 back? For instance, like queen to d5 now, and waiting for next move, like bishop to c7, and after rook to c8. If you move the bishop away, that's very good for me. I'm going to take the pawn back. But how about rook to a7 move, which guards the bishop on the 7th rank?
Very good point, Keti. I don't know what to do against rook a7, because it seems that white simply protects everything. And now the next moves might be, with a correct preparation, queen c4, b4, b5, b6. If this happens, black is busted. That's it. There's no chance that he's going to survive, because these pawns are going to decide the fate of the game. Thus, if you sacrifice the pawn on c7 just like that, you better be ready for this. And here, after bishop c6, d takes on c6, the next move is of very high importance for Kosteniuk. I mean, how do you play? You want to play active, but the pawn on c7 is under attack. Are you going for this very passive move, bishop d8? What would you do, Keti, here?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would personally choose rook to c8, probably from f8, and Kosteniuk goes for that move. So with bishop d8, you kind of stand behind two rooks and there's no connection between these rooks. And we know that very often this connection on the back rank between the rooks are not so good. And by yf to c8, this is a very passive move for sure. And we're defending pawn on c7. There is no question with that. But the other rook on b file, we keep it at this semi-open file, and also moves like b4, b5, and b6 will be just a bit slow.
Right, so definitely Kosteniuk wants to have at least some sort of activity on the board. I think it's something like this, Keti. You close your eyes and you play rook fc8 because you just cannot look at this move. It looks so passive, and Kosteniuk knows it's passive. But the thing is, I mean, you just gotta protect the pawn. And also, that being said, she probably is not completely forgotten this idea to put a bishop on d6, because that would allow to relieve the sad rook from c8 and give it a more active role.
I like that idea very much. d5, bishop f4, bishop d6 too. So White's plan is pretty much clear, right? You want to play b4. You want to play something like queen c4 looks also quite tempting here to attack the pawn on d4. So your bishop will be busy to guard this pawn. And then at some place you can play rook to b1, b4, and if you're ready to push b6 at that point, and if you're not losing anything there, when the pawns are b6 and c6, that's pretty much game over already for black.
Yeah,
so black has to stop that.
Let us show us maybe some sample line if black is like completely, again, oblivious, nothing is happening there, making some random moves here and there, b5, king h7. Okay, this
maybe we guard the pawn on d4 as well.
Okay, yeah. I could have played more active moves, I guess. But this is the big point, right? This is the big point. You organize this very strong passed pawn while black wasted like a million tempos to get there, and white achieves exactly what she wanted. And that's why, of course, here black is going to have to play something more active. So after b4, queen c4 is about to follow. Rook b1 Keti makes perfect sense because the rook on a file is not doing anything. So essentially this is a race, right? You put together the white and black puzzle pieces and see how it looks. For example, I play bishop f4, or maybe I play d5. What do you respond?
Yeah, in d5 case, I was thinking about queen to c5 in that way to keep the eye on both pawns in the center. Right.
So I guess if I play bishop f4, I do achieve to put the bishop on d6, but at the expense of the pawn. And this is probably not what Kosteniuk really wants. So once again, we have to go back. b4, maybe no d5, but what? What about some sort of a kingside attack with something like h5, h4, h3? Try to bother white at the kingside.
Yeah, I was also thinking of that move, but maybe, Artur, this is even something white is waiting right now, and white is in a position that looks for some weaknesses, right? It's for the moment b5 and b6 plan is stopped now. We can push forward unless we play queen c4, rook b1, and then bishop on a5 is something also misplaced and hanging at some point. And imagine if there is a weakness on the king side, those rooks and the queen will very fast switch the sides and start to play on the king side. And meanwhile, those two rooks for black, c8 and b8, I don't really see much of perspective for those two rooks that they can fast quickly switch the sides. So I think the move h5, h4, it might be better for white in that case.
I don't argue, but what else, right? What else, Keti? And also I noticed one thing is here after maybe could be a part of black's defensive plan. Let's say after b4, queen c4, black could have access to bishop d2 and bishop c3, attacking the rook in e1, putting the bishop on c3, applying some pressure against the pawn on b4 and extra protecting the pawn on d4. So that's why it's going to be very important to be able to execute the accurate order of the moves. For example, b4, my guess, okay, let's say something like g6, rook b1 probably first. Let's say black plays h5, and you still are not threatened to play queen c4 because of the same idea, bishop d2. So white needs to prepare quite a bit to make this idea of queen c4, b4, b5, and even b6 work. So I think that for Kosteniuk, things are unpleasant. She feels she has time. So now the big question is how to use this time properly and get out of the trouble, because the trouble is looming slowly but approaching.
Yeah, and Artur, our chat suggests very nice idea about rook to b5 for black. So you stop b5 happening after b4, and even if you play queen c4 now, how you're really looking like going forward with that. I really like that. And also besides that, if there is some kind of kingside attack for black, like h4, h5, you have your rook already on the 5th rank.
That's a very valid point. Yeah, rook b5, I like it. So
we have to be, I think, a bit careful with the back rank. Maybe at this point we have bishop c7, as black's back rank is a little bit weak.
Okay, let's start with h5 maybe.
h5, yeah.
h5 and then rook b5 so that we simply deal with this problem. This looks extremely pragmatic. You make a window for the king, and that's where you usually can spot. Actually, this is very interesting stuff, Keti. Standard response by average player, h6. Why? You make a window for the king.
Yeah.
Where you see a difference that this is a strong player. Strong player not only makes a window for the king, but also secures more space and is thinking about an attack.
Yeah, also
so that's
like
usually
scares a little bit the opponent. There's something else that the opponent has to think and spend some time. Is there any kind of attack? Is my king going to be weak? So yeah, I like these moves, h5s.
Right, and now after rook b1 carry, black could play rook b5 here, stopping this pawn to move altogether. And maybe it's actually fine for black, right? I like the idea for white, put the bishop on a5, play b4, apply the pressure on the pawn on c7. But the more closely you look at it, you have to figure out once again, is this bishop on a5 even good? Because you have really great intentions. I mean, getting the pawn on c7, but essentially what white has done is excluding the bishop from the game completely. And this might actually mean that black can do some very nasty things at a kingside with h4, queen g4, rook g5, lift it, and be quite unexpected.
That's right. That's very interesting. And also, our chat on Twitch asks, Artur, about the statistics between Goryachkina and Kosteniuk. And you have the statistics, you have made some calculations. So we can actually repeat these two today. Who is the favorite between these two?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you for bringing this up, Keti. So this is essentially a repeat of the FIDE World Cup 2021 final match. You might remember last year it was Alexandra Kosteniuk who got the better of Alexandra Goryachkina, winning her in the final with the 1.5 point against half a point. It was only 2-game mini match, very long tournament anyway. And thus Kosteniuk managed to secure one of her greatest career achievements. She had actually a really great last year, right? Because she also won the World Rapid Championship, was second in the World Blitz Championship. Really, really amazing year
she
for her.
She won every possible tournament.
Basically every tournament.
Yeah. In Lausanne, yeah.
Even Monaco, okay, I didn't check so closely. I just wrote down those biggest achievements. And speaking head-to-head score between two Alexandras here, Kosteniuk leads 6 victories, 3 losses, and now, including yesterday's draw, it's 9 draws. But I think it's very important to mention the first 4 victories came for Kosteniuk pretty much in a row with a white color. And Kosteniuk has played 12 games with white, and against Goryachkina, and Goryachkina has played only 5. So then later, of course, as soon as Goryachkina was on the rise, she was actually one of the few women players to cross the magical 26 barrier of ELO rating. She's doing all right and managed to actually score more points, but she did lose to Kosteniuk in the World Cup final.
That is right. We have here 2 very strong players, played several games against each other, but Artur, there is an age gap between these 2 players. So for instance, those players who have similar age, that means that they also played youth championships, so there are more and more games, but also they are teammates. So most of the big events are the team events in chess, and they are representing the same team, and they are not playing against each other. They play the national tournaments for sure, they play these individual tournaments against each other, but mainly they are playing as a team. So
Right.
that's why we don't have like hundreds of games between them, but for sure they know each other quite well, and they know what strategy should be chosen to play against each other. By the way,
yeah. Sorry.
I saw the video interview after the game yesterday, and Alexandra Kosteniuk admitted that she was having very bad position and she escaped to lose the game and the worst position. And she said that she was saved at the time pressure, like at that moment when the time started to tick on the clock. And that's a very good point that she admitted this. Usually players don't like to admit some of the weaknesses that they have, and most of the players believe that they were winning the game. But it's very interesting to share her thoughts after the game, and she knew that she was having very tough position for sure.
Of course, I think she knew, because I think, Keti, it really depends on the person, to be honest. Because I do think that the majority of the players are pretty honest about the game, and it's very often you have the same opinion. For example, let's say the same game of yesterday's round one, Goryachkina with black against Kosteniuk. I think both players had no doubts, right, that it was black who missed it, and then they agree. They meet after the game discussion. They talk about it. They have pretty much the same opinion. Okay, I mean, they could have some differences in some of the lines they calculated. Very often, these are the same thoughts, and that's why it's so shocking sometimes when you have two players, they have completely diametrical opinions. This is so rare. This is so rare, right? I mean, one player says, "No, I was doing so great," and the other guy says, "No, I was the one doing so great." And this means that probably one of them is completely wrong, right, or simply unable to accept the fact that his position was not very good. I had these situations myself, but normally we agree very quickly. Yeah, you're winning or you're losing.
I don't even judge with this type of people, because then it's good to know that, like, if you know that your opponent is evaluating the position wrong, that's something that you can remember, and it's a good point. So if, for instance, there is an equal position, your opponent thinks that it's winning for your opponent, he will try his best to win. That can cause some complication as well. So at some point, I understand there is no point for me to even just get into very deep conversation if we have some misunderstanding about the evaluation and the position. Artur, you know why I brought this topic? I could not resist to check what our dear engine says at this position. And guess what?
I have to guess.
It says at this point, it's 0-0-0 equal position.
Yeah, this is, of course, infamous evaluation of the engine. Engine says, "I do not understand." There's just no other way. The engine knows how to say it, and programmers don't know how to make it express, and that's why they say sometimes in positions, "I do not understand." It's some kind of equality, and usually engines, they offer some trefoil repetition in order to get out of this situation, right? For example, I don't know, King H1, King H8, King G1, King G8, and this is somehow equal. But I would say, Keti, that this is simply unclear. My favorite expression, as I see in the chat also there's a mention, my favorite expression is simply unclear. And the better player is going to win.
Yeah, that's true. But I think at this point, Alexandra might feel that she is a bit passive and she's the one who has to be more careful here. So how big can be the difference of the engine thought here, which thinks that it's equal 0-0, and how much do you think that Goryachkina thinks that she has very nice position and very good chance to win?
I don't know. I'll tell you honestly, because when you go back to this position, imagine yourself from Goryachkina's shoes. How else do you continue this game? Maybe at some point about here, she realized I slightly messed it up, because she probably was choosing between these two choices: Queen C2, Rook A7, or remember Bishop C2, B4, B5, which you said that this is the top choice of the engine. So she was choosing. And then after a couple of moves, I don't know what happened. Maybe she missed something. Maybe the Queen D7 dodged her attention that this move, not protecting the opponent C7, is possible. Now the big question is, how do you even stop C6? Because if black plays C6, despite the fact you have an outside pass pawn, black is just super active. So I guess she had to improvise. She had to continue with something, come up with the idea, very interesting idea, by the way, Bishop C6. But in the end, in order to have some extra pressure against the pawn on C7 with this B4, B5 idea, she had to play B4. But I don't think really she has great illusions that this position is so great. She just managed to pick up something which is playable in this position and hope that it's going to be enough.
Well, yeah. For white, we have here some suggestion. For instance, James Aller says that play Queen E2 and try to trade the queen's endgame would be like pleasant to play. Another suggestion in the chat is from Sweet Author. Says Rook E2, Rook E1, double the rooks on E5, and just continue to play. Both of these moves make a lot of sense. But also we have here in the chat, Simon says that I would prefer here black color because it's more easier for me to play this Rook B5, H5, G6 moves, and those moves are not hard to find.
I can agree with the part. There's also one thing that engines are not yet, by the way, not yet taught to understand the easiness to play the moves. This is something the engines simply don't understand. For example, they might show a certain position. Let's say it's either equal. It doesn't even have to be equal. It could be slightly better for white or slightly worse for black. But you simply have to also take into account how easy for you it's to come up with the moves, right? So maybe actually in this position, I do agree that moves like Rook B5, H5, maybe H4, maybe King H7, for black is a little bit easier, and for white it's more demanding, right? Because the bishop on A5 is stranded. It's completely locked out of the game, so white needs to come up with something. But I still guess Rook E2, Rook E1 makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's right. And another very interesting thing that I have not considered at that point, but move 19 when black played bishop to G5. Shall we get back at that point where black played bishop G5 move? And here, James Aller says, like, I don't understand why not F4 here to get some space advantage, kick this bishop, and when bishop leaves, F6 probably.
Okay, maybe provoke a weakness first. Here, and bishop F6.
And at this point, how about rook to A7 or rook to C1, just to kind of change the direction of the moves?
It makes sense. I do agree. But now there's the problem. Rook A7 doesn't come with a threat yet, because rook takes on C7 is rook takes on B3, so you still need to make another move. And I'm slightly concerned about weakened king. So if I'm playing from the white's perspective, I assume that probably black could sacrifice the pawn on C7 and not protect it. And this is the biggest difference, dear viewers, right? The best players in the world, they perfectly feel these moments when you have to drop the pawn, and they're very rarely going to opt for a passive defense. That's why here something like rook C8 just to protect the pawn and hold on to it for your dear life is probably unthinkable. So if I'm here playing with white, I would anticipate something like queen C8. Right? Queen C8, queen H3 idea, for example, you do win your pawn. I put the queen, let's say, on F5. Now this pawn is under attack. You play queen C4. You protect this pawn at all costs, H5. And I start to look at this position from the white's perspective. And I simply conclude, I don't want to play this, right? Because all of my pieces feel really awkward. There's H4, H3, G5 maybe even. And I don't have a harmony of piece coordination at the king side, at the queen side, my apologies. So I would simply drop it. And usually good players, they simply draw a line at some point. And look at this position. I don't like it, right? And they don't have this information that, for example, engine says is 0.35 advantage for white, right? So they don't know that. They look at it, they don't like it, they scratch it. They don't come back.
Well, let's get back in the current position as black here just made h5 move. And Alexandra just spent a little bit of time, but she played the move, which is very important to have no weakness on the back rank and to have some kind of chance to start a counterplay. And no one likes to be passive. No one wants to wait. And obviously you don't want to tell your opponent that I'm okay with a draw. So it's always good to fight for two results from your side and not go to the passive position, because basically you are just getting tired of being passive and somewhere you are making one small mistake and that's game over.
All right, let's jump also to the other game, because I see, Keti, that there's some couple of more moves being played. Let's remind the viewers, the other game is between Katerina Lagno against Tan Zhongyi. Yesterday, the first game finished in a draw. Both players had their chances for an advantage. Actually, I still remember what we were discussing, this idea, Keti, that black should keep the knight on b4. I was right. Yeah, I checked it also with Engine later. Yeah, Engine really likes to keep that knight. I'm talking about yesterday's game, doesn't really matter.
Okay.
So,
and
rook e1.
Gambit.
Rook e1, not rook d2.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
I remember. Knight on b4 and bishop on d3. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay. So here the threat is knight c5, win the knight. You have to remove the rook to make it happen. Knight b5. I think it's very important to note here that for Tan Zhongyi, it's of paramount importance not to allow white to play b5, a4. Why is this? Because this is now going to be a protected pass pawn on the queen side. It pretty much doesn't matter what happens on the queen side. This pawn is strongly supported by the rook on a8 is not doing a thing. So that's why the entire purpose of this move knight b5 is not to make a fork, right? I mean, of course, if there's a complete blackout for white, she might miss it. But the point is to take on b4. So here queen g4, Lagno played it very aggressive. Knight c3, I guess the knight is going to go to e4, take it, knight b4, knight e4, and this is simply, if I dare to say, an equal position.
Seems like white has the pass pawn on the queen side, black has these central pawns on d and e file, and very nice knight on e4. I have a feeling that those weaknesses that black had earlier in the position is somehow eliminated, and with this knight on e4, black should not be worried that much. Black can try to double maybe rooks on e file, start even with the queen e7 move, and to play something like that. But to be honest, I don't see pawn moves in the center because those pawns are stopped, and I don't see also pawn a file being pushed forward, right?
Right.
So both players' pawns are kind of stopped, and you cannot really feel that they are the passed pawns, and they can create some danger.
I think there's a very high chance of a draw, unless there's some immediate shot which I'm missing, because with so many pieces on the board, I don't see how white can make a progress of the pawn moving forward. And in the general, as a general understanding goes, I think white wants to trade pieces. Trade. For example, trade knights. Oh, okay, maybe let's keep the knights, but trade queens and trade pair of rooks. Then you can put the rook behind it and push a4, a5, a6. And this is actually started to looking really good. But how do you force these trades? Because black is going to play something like rook a7 and probably just going to decline. And this pawn is going to move forward like a turtle. I mean, not moving at all, right? So you play something like rook a1, a3, and that's it. It's not moving forward. So that's why my estimation is that this position is still quite equal. Also, black has a pass pawn at the d file, by the way. So I would suspect this is going to be a draw.
Yeah, it's something that I have from my childhood memories, that Tan Zhongyi always liked to have a short hair, and she always liked to have a pin just like she's having right now. And her pin is also chess theme, which is very good looking. And for me personally, to see this kind of thing is something that drags me to my childhood. When, as I told you yesterday, after people were scared to play against her, she was so strong.
Yeah, she's still very strong, right? She's been a world champion, right? So
they had reason to be scared, right?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So far, Black is doing all right here, and the match looks pretty much level. Yeah. So by the way, one thing I have to mention: if White plays f3, you need to watch out for Queen a7. And this long diagonal with some fork ideas looks a bit worrisome, although probably it's not even a big thing, right? I mean, I can play King H1 or even f1. Looks a bit scary. I wouldn't want to go there. You know, my gut feeling says there's going to be something. There's something. Yeah, you don't want to go there. So if you don't play f3, I mean, how do you get rid of this knight? The pawn on a2 is under attack. So let's say you play something like a3, and I'm thinking how to get this rook on a7. It's just so slow, no?
It is slow. We can get queen on a7.
Queen a7. Yeah, why not? Yeah, Queen a7, you also pin the pawn on f2. I wanted to put this rook on a7, but again, I mean, maybe it can do something else.
Yeah, the point here is that we cannot really leave the back rank unprotected, because if there is a check and our king goes on c7, then knight e5 comes with a check, and that's where the problems can start. So with this queen a7 and rook on a8, you can control b8 square perfectly fine. You also look for f2 pawn, so there will be no f3s happening. And you know what you can do here? Maybe rook to f7, rook to f8 to start to annoy your opponent's king side.
Right, yeah. So this pawn is not moving anywhere with so many heavy pieces. I like it. And also, it's very important to mention here that White is in minor time trouble. I mean, look at the clock, right, Keti? White has 22 minutes against Black's 46. And Black seems secure. So you can't really help but feel, maybe I need to bail out. You know, maybe just take the safe way. I tried my experiment. I came up with a very interesting idea, rook e3. Black solved all the problems. It did not work. I do not need to make a tragedy out of this, right? So, okay, I mean, still it's an even match. I'm going to lose my opportunity to win with the white color, but draw is still good because the match is very even. Maybe I need to bail out. This is what every player usually is thinking, unless, of course, you're a fanatic who is always, you know, every single game, don't matter what's the situation in the match, you're fighting for the win. Most of the players, they're pragmatics, right? And they see there's nothing happening. It's getting a bit dangerous. You're a bit low on time. Okay, let's just make a draw here.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Well, it's also something like when you feel that the things are not going on your way, you're losing some time on the clock, you kind of have a feeling that, okay, maybe I can take it off today and try it tomorrow.
What about this one? I was thinking this queen b6 idea. This is how you get a draw. Knight c3. Knight c3 takes. Couple of moves, shake hands. No? Yeah, this is looking extremely logical. Black has the passed pawn, which is blocked. White is not having any ideas.
Yeah. I think Black has a bit more ideas here, so...
Yeah, okay, maybe there's a checkmate in one threat, but you can easily stop it with something like rook a8, and even this pawn is, if it's gone, that's a dream scenario for White. Even that is probably a draw, so I would expect that if Katrina doesn't find anything, she's going to play f3, allow queen a7 check, king f1, king h1 with so little time, assuming... she's going to spend even more time. It's getting really low.
After king h1, you can even play knight f2 there. And to trade the knights, get this queen on f2, pawn on a2 is hanging. Okay. Yeah, that's a checkmate. So we're going to get the rook on a7 as we wanted. So this is very good position.
Right. The position could also liquidate in something like, I don't want to play this passive move. Rook a2, by the way, is a threat. So maybe here... rook a7, we trade these pawns, and again, it's going to be some sort of equalish endgame. Although I already like black's chances more because the rook on g1 is very passive. So that's why here white needs to understand, principally, is she still playing for the win or not? And this is really important. You need to make this decision. So it's no longer, I'm going to make the strongest move here. She sees she's a bit low on time. Black is up on the clock more than 25 minutes. Probably there's no advantage. Maybe it's time to call a day and just make a draw.
Yeah, and remember, Artur, yesterday also Katerina was having 7 to 8 minutes and 12 more moves to play. So today she's also going very close to that territory. But then suddenly she started to play so accurate moves, so fast moves as well, and that there was no problem for her. And she was actually from just a bit passive position, she even got better isolated pawn position in the end. And then the draw was agreed. Myself, I would be panicking if I had 7 minutes at that position with so many pieces on the board. But Katerina, as we know that she is very good at rapid and blitz time controls, she can so much handle the time.
Yeah, this must run in the family, right? Because her husband, Goryachkina, also is extremely good with accelerated time controls, of course. And
yeah, he likes to drop the time down to 1 minute and then start to blitz it out.
He's probably one of the best in the world to do it, right? And he's also, how many times he has won the World Blitz Championship? I don't know, a couple of times at least, I think. Maybe once totally for sure, right? So yeah, they're definitely very, very good players at accelerated time controls. So yeah, Lagno, I think I had it written down, her results. Where was this? Let me find it. She has many titles, obviously. She has won the World Blitz Championship in 2010, 18, 19. So she's 3 times World Blitz Champion and also World Rapid Champion in 2014. Right, so
it's impressive.
One of the best players in the world. I mean, okay, it was some time ago, but still, 2018, 19. These are pretty recent events, and that's why I don't think she's really concerned about the time trouble.
Yeah, I agree. I can't agree more. She's now down to 17 minutes at this position. 17 minutes is not too low if you see the clear plan how you can equalize and go to the end game where you can offer a draw. That should not be a problem. However, we also have another game, and let's take a look back at that position. Let's see how Kosteniuk is handling her position, if we have any news.
Yeah, there's one move. Yeah, after b4, I think we did not see it. Yeah, we saw h5, queen e2. Okay, blatant attack on the pawn. Not really sure if Goryachkina was hoping that was achieved. Bishop f6. Why not g6? I do not understand why it was necessary to play this. Maybe here.
Thought of queen e4. So now
she wants to trade queens.
Queen trade, yeah.
She wants to trade queens. And now, what's the big difference here? After bishop f6, is Kosteniuk going to decline?
She can. It's an option. She can play queen g5. She can play queen b5.
Yeah. Or the same rook b5, right? I'm not sure I understand the nuances. Probably there's no difference. Or maybe just keep the queens. Yeah, just play queen b5. Keep the position more tense. Although this queen on e4 is looking pretty good.
Also, you want to play bishop b5, right? To just cut the diagonal, the file.
Yeah, I guess at some point. So queen b5 is a bishop e5 is definitely an option at some point. No, queen b5 looks a bit odd, to be honest. So I guess black can still just play rook b5. Rook b5, take it. Rook f5. This pawn is blocked. So for example, rook b1, black stops it. You play something like g3 to bring the king closer, g6, king g2, king g7. And maybe, I don't know, maybe white at some point comes with this idea to trade the rooks and black can still stop it. Yeah, maybe there's just no progress.
Yeah,
could as well
happen. So
happen.
hard with this bishop on a5. white is also playing without a piece, right? It attacks the pawn on c7 and keeps the rook on c8, but you cannot really do anything else with just only one open e-file.
Right. That's why this is some kind of a mutual, how do you call it, stalemate, right? It's difficult to make a progress. You want to have some progress, but it's difficult to have a progress. The bishop on a5 is stuck. Here we have a very nice zoom on the board.
Artur, I'm thinking, how about if the queens are off the board, how about if white starts to bring the king on g2, f3, e4, d5, c4, push the pawn on b5, and to look for some kind of free the bishop actions, like bishop somewhere on d2, c1, b2 to attack d4 pawn.
First, you need to get rid of the queens, I guess. Yeah, let's say we remove every single piece from the board. Remove the rooks. I don't know even how to do it. I can try to come up with something like here. Takes. There's going to be blunders. Don't worry about this. I just want to show this very big idea. Of course, let's ignore that the pawn is under attack. If white achieves something like this, in some ideal scenario, the maneuver that you described, I'm not sure, here on d5, I'm sorry, or put the king on here, and then you advance the pawn on b6. This is really a good endgame for white. Yeah, because all of these pawns are on the color of the black bishop. This pawn on c7 is quite vulnerable, and I'm pretty sure that Kosteniuk is going to do everything in her power to avoid something like this. So she definitely needs at least one rook on the board to block the pawn on b4 and not allow this bishop to join the game.
That's right. And also in case if black keeps the rooks on the board and not trade, just if queens are off the board, then white can double the rooks on e-file and then bring the king on c4 square. And I have difficulties to understand how black is going to stop with these passive rooks.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, for example, let's say I'm going to play g6 and say it's your move.
Okay, let's say queen e4, queen takes e4, rook takes e4.
Okay, I'm doing nothing, literally.
Yeah, rook to e1, rook to e2.
Okay, I'm doing nothing.
King to f1, king e1, king d2, king c2, king goes all the way to c4.
Okay, yeah, there's some progress, I don't argue. Maybe I should do something. But there's also king a4. Okay, this is something. This not even to mention the rook e8 check, of course, which we missed it. I was just trying to show the idea, right? Of course, it requires a more accurate execution. But trading queens is a good start. Rook c1, Keti, I think this is some kind of waiting move because the rook on a1 doesn't do anything, just in case you protect the pawn on c6. Right. Never hurts. And you also give the opportunity for black to make a mistake. I mean, you never know. Maybe, black goes totally crazy and she plays h4. So after h3, this is another target for you at the endgame.
Right, another pawn fixed on the dark square. And we can see the movement of Alexandra Kosteniuk. She's shaking her right leg. That can be a sign of a bit of, tense situation right now. I have a feeling that she is thinking that she's not having the best position today either.
No, I think actually they both suspect it's about balance. That's my instinct. I think she's trying to figure out, should she keep the queens on the board? And that's why the next move is so important. She's trying to figure out what she's going to do with this queen e4. Maybe d5 is under her radar, like stopping this queen e4 idea simply for forever. But this d5 again is very committal move. It weakens the c5 square for the white rook, and this tense movement, it's a very common thing. I also tend to do it, right? You keep yourself in check. You show that you're very much concentrated. So yeah, I'm not even sure if that's nervousness. You just
it's just
she's in a fighting mode.
Kind of, I think
she's in a fighting mode. This is typical fighting stance for a chess player, right? I know many players do it. Sometimes I do it myself, right?
You want to keep yourself awake, so you will not miss anything. And somehow,
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe awake. Maybe just you're really showing that you are into the fighting spirit, and this is simply she's not even aware that she's doing this. I think, right? At some subconscious level, this is happening, and.
Oh, recently I played a tournament, very big festival, Abu Dhabi festival, and there was one guy, international master, I think, or a grandmaster, and he was shaking so much that whole room was just annoyed with that. And I was like, every day when I was going there, I was like, oh no, I'm sitting close to him. Like, it was literally so annoying and so visibly stressful situation for him that I don't even know how to deal with it. But I should admit that it's very disturbing.
This is Keti, what was happening to me at childhood. I think I was up to something like 12, okay, maybe 14 years old. And if I would play in some tournaments, I would get extremely nervous. I would get so nervous that my stomach would start to hurt, right? I mean, during the game, I feel such a critical moment. But then, after some time later, you just calm down. I mean, obviously, you calm down, you get more experience. And this dramatic shaking that you described, I can relate to that. Sometimes this would happen to me in some games as well, right? So you feel so nervous, but this is, again, the lack of experience. But some sort of a form of showing this nervousness or alertness to what's happening sometimes remains.
Yeah, I had this kind of shaky situation when I was passing my driving license. my right leg was shaking so much out of the stress that at some point I had to put right hand on it to stop. It was so much panicking. But yeah, that's for sure it's not happening to Alexandra, and her approach is very, very, she's a fighter, and I have seen her losing fun of the first games and then coming back with a winning the whole tournament. So most of the cases, those kind of things are something that you want to keep yourself more like awake, more like in feeling the situation, not to miss anything, and just ready to get if something happens on the board, if your opponent blunders something, and so on.
Right. So, of course, this game is of highest importance, and nobody is denying that Goryachkina is already one of the strongest players in the world and the future star of Russian chess. But also Kosteniuk is here to say that I'm still playing very well, right? So it's a very, very principled fight between two players. And speaking about the other game, Keti, there's been some moves, and I think that we are seeing that the game is fizzling out to something equalish, because if the A pawn for the E pawn is going to be traded, there's going to be a draw after F3, which was played in the game, and not Queen B6. This is actually a bit surprising. King H1 was played.
Queen B6, probably Queen A2. That's why she didn't play it. She can do that?
But I just take on E4, no? Queen B6, Queen A2?
Yeah,
I just take it.
take
Yeah, so this is not possible. And King H1 takes. This pawn is seriously under attack. Or is she really still having some ideas that she's playing for the win? I find it very hard to believe.
I don't think so.
You can easily blunder this. A3, Rook B7, you resign. And you come back from Kishos, right? Everything is hanging for you. So you can't really do this. That's a bit strange. Just a second. So Queen F2? And now what is Katerina's idea? What she wants to play next?
She can play Rook to B1 here.
Yeah, but what about Rook A2? There's the checkmate threat.
Another Rook.
The other Rook.
Yes. Another Rook. And after Rook to A2, willing for the checkmate, you can go Queen to B8 now. After King to F7, you have Queen F4 check, and you can hold that position.
And that's a draw.
Yeah.
I guess. No, instead she played Rook B to E3. She played something else. A bit strange. Strange choice by Lagno, but I mean, it's still a draw, right? The same idea. Rook A2, Queen B8, King F7, and Queen F4. No, it should be still a draw, right? Because this king cannot escape, assuming that black takes on a2. I think she's going to take it. Because black is not playing this position for the win, is she?
Well, if you don't take and if you play rook to a7 now, e6 pawn is hanging, you have double rooks on the e5, you want rook e8, and then queen f8 checks. So what else you can play?
Yeah. No, I'm thinking maybe I can just protect this pawn somehow. Let's say I start with... What can I start with? But what can also secure this pawn with a3, right? Let's say I somehow protect this rook on a7. Let's say I play, whatever, king f7. Of course, I see a check here. I see that. But let's say I play a3. Is white even threatening to win this game?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like it. No, I think the players are ready. I think they have accepted it's going to be a draw. And also for Lagno, this is a choice based on the fact she's also below on the clock 11 minutes. She is ready to make a draw. So what was it again? Rook takes on a2. Hope I'm not missing anything dramatic here. That would be embarrassing. Check here.
I don't think so.
Check.
And she's going for it. Rook
check.
Pawn.
Ah, that's rook e6. You can't even do this.
Yeah, if you play some inaccuracy move here, you can even lose the game with black. And Katerina goes for queen b8. Yeah, they're gonna end this game soon.
Yeah, this game is about to finish. I think after queen b8, king f7, queen f4 is going to be king e8. That's the most precise way. This game is about to finish. Let's watch this. The players are ready. So Lagno decided to be pragmatic. Also, they're playing so fast, usually a signal. There's going to be a draw very quickly. But they have to meet the formalities. King g8, you just go back. I missed that, yeah.
Yeah, she's just going back in case if white changed the mood and keeps to play. Let's have the full video to see how they gonna end.
Even the arbiter suspects this is going to be a draw. This means the arbiter is highly qualified. He understands this is going to be a draw. There you go, draw agreed. Threefold repetition was made after a couple of moves.
So first game out of two is done. Katerina Lagno and Tan Zhongyi ended the second game in a draw. Wow, the question is when we're going to have a decisive result in this match. We might know that in 2 days, might not. But anyway, Artur, they cannot make all the draws because if that happens, then we have tie breaks too. And in the tie breaks, we have a little bit more like not weird rules, but we have the rules that we can define the winner in that match.
Keti, you just reminded me of making these draws. I read this very funny discussion on Reddit. It's very interesting. And there was discussion how to become a world champion by making the draws. Have you read it? No?
Who wrote it?
I suggest to read it. I think it was something like you play in the FIDE World Cup, you finish all the matches in a draw, you enter the Armageddon, you choose black color, you make a draw, you advance, and you do it until the final. You don't win a single game, you make all the draws, you win the World Cup. Then you enter the candidates. You make all the draws, assuming everybody makes draws, and whatever was the discussion in the end, you qualify for the World Championship match.
Yeah.
You qualify for the World Championship match, you make all the draws, and the tiebreak again, you go to Armageddon, you make a draw, like you're world champion. I mean, jokes aside, of course, this is simply impossible scenario, but these tiebreaks, dear viewers, you have to understand, they're simply necessary. Otherwise, the players... Sometimes they can make a lot of draws, right? And you can't force them to play. When you mentioned
about that, one player came up to my mind, and I think also in our viewers' mind too, which is Anishkiri, who is known by making draws, and maybe that's some. For sure, he has seen this post and this discussion, but also like lately, I've seen one of his posts that. Until this point, people are still being surprised of his draws. Like, we don't get used to it already at this point, and we're still very much surprised. But that's a very nice strategy. I wonder if someone would like to take that way and get the world championship title.
Yeah, I mean, definitely there can be more championships. The one of the recent ones reminds me, Magnus Carlsen against Fabi Caruana. All the games in the classical games finished in a draw, right? So, I mean, what can you do? I mean, both players are so good. They're not making mistakes. I mean, there were some mistakes, but in general, not so critical. And you just finish a draw. That's what happens. And chess is such an ideal game that with the perfect circumstances, it finishes in a draw. So the best you can do is try to, make the life of the opponent as difficult as possible, get him in the time trouble, get there and force him to make the decisions in unclear position with a very limited time on the clock. So that's where you force the opponent to make a mistake, but you can't really brute force outplay the opponent if he is playing perfect chess.
Yeah. Also, there is another thing that sometimes draw, when you need a draw, is so hard to make. I was thinking if I can wish one superpower, maybe I could have a superpower to make a draw when I really need it. But yeah, that's the chess. You think that chess is a kind of like equal, like if you play correctly, it can be draw, but then to play correct moves is not so easy. And we have seen some unfortunate losses in the very drawish positions, some blunders, because in the end of the day, it comes to the players, and we're human beings, and there are so many side factors that can affect the players.
Right. So yeah, just the stuff. What can I say, right?
Yeah. Did Tal once win a major tournament with all draws except 2 games?
That's a mention in the Twitch chat. Yeah, hello there. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know, but he did win some games, right?
For sure.
And, speaking about some ancient times, those of you who are following the modern chess and you are perhaps not aware what happened before, there used to be very long tournaments, round robins. Imagine yourself gathering together, let's say, 25 grandmasters, okay, maybe international masters as well. They gather in some suburbs and they play a month tournament with postponed games, right? So you have the playing day, then next day you play the postponed game, you have a lot of analysis, then you have a rest day, and you play a tournament for a month, right? So that's incredible. So it's actually quite understandable that since those times, the tradition to make short draws was introduced because it was so tough. It was so tough, and something has remained up to this day, because sometimes when you're having a very tough schedule, you simply choose against who I'm going to play for the win and who I'm probably going to try to make a draw, just to save the energy for the big picture, for the big run, so that I have enough strength to finish the tournament.
That's what I was actually talking earlier. Right. So it's a completely legit strategy, and that's why these draws happen, and that's why also FIDE introduced this rule of Sofia rule, right? That you can't make these draws, and especially this rule is more common in the highest level tournaments. Like the first which jumps to my mind is the FIDE candidates. There's the FIDE World Championship title, of course, FIDE Grand Swiss, where I also had the chance to participate myself, right? So it's tough. But still, I mean, if you want to make a draw, and if both players want to make a draw, you're going to make it. So no rules stop you. It's like the most absurd rule that we have, really. I don't understand that rule.
But in the meantime, look at the game here, Keti. Kosteniuk has declined the queen trade. I guess she felt that trading the queens gives white some slightly better chances in the endgame. So let's go. Where was this? Here, bishop f6, g6, couple of not really forcing moves, and there you go. Queen goes away. h4. I don't see anything happening here. Rook a8. Nice maneuver, just in case activating the rook. Rook goes on a6 if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
How do you
that keeps the queen and the rook busy to guard opponent c6.
Right. I mean, you still have enough pieces to protect it. By the way, maybe the idea is rook a6, d5. Check this out.
Oh, then
and you win the pawn.
I am getting in problem with the pawn on c6.
How do you protect it? That's the question.
Rook e2, rook c2.
Yeah, but you're not playing for the win anymore, are you?
Yeah, no. After that,
No, I think there could be some traveled repetition pretty soon. So let's say something like rook e2, rook a6, rook c2. Not sure. Maybe black actually can force matters. Something like, let's say, as soon as you play rook e2. I was thinking even I could include this move at some point. Assuming that white cannot sacrifice the queen, not sacrifice, but trade the queen for 2 rooks. Because this is, at the first sight, not very obvious what's happening here. I don't know. I mean, there's a passed pawn, I have a passed pawn, I don't know what this is. But assuming this is impossible, there could be even rook e8, trade it, and now rook a6. With the same idea. Ah, wait, it allows white to take on c7. Okay.
You can also take.
Just ignore what I said. probably rook a6 is still the idea. I guess rook a6. Let's say rook e2, rook a6, rook c2, rook a8, rook e2. Shake hands. I mean, yeah, of course. I probably jumping to the conclusions, but how is white going to make a progress? I just don't see. Okay, maybe repeat back to e2 is not necessary, but how do you make a progress?
Yeah, and you can't even like sacrifice the exchange for pawn on d4 and dark square bishop, because if you could do so, and if your bishop from a5 gets on the a1 h8 diagonal, that could be a great idea. But this, how Alexander Kosteniuk played this queen b5 and all this kingside pawn chain, stops all kind of potential sacrifices from white.
Right. So queen b5 was a good practical choice. And Kosteniuk, of course, I think she is happy to make a draw. The match situation is good because, in general, the match strategy is that white tries to play for the win, black tries to play for a draw.
Yeah.
So that's why you get very rare, sharp openings from black's perspective at these highest level tournaments. You don't get to see Benoni, you don't get to see Dutch defense or Benko, God forbid, right? You're playing something very solid and you really rely that you're going to come up with something innovative with the white color. And of course, sometimes when the situation changes, let's say you're losing the match and you have to win on demand, and of course with the black color, you bring out something more aggressive as your secondary weapon. But you, in general, do not play aggressive openings when you have to be sold.
That's true. So we have queen f3 played by Goryachkina here at this point. What is her plan? She is planning to play rook e4, rook f4. Is that anything?
I think she just removed the queen from potential tempo attack. By the way, there's a good point in the chat. Yeah, rook a6, d5, there's also rook c5. And the pawn is always protected. That's a very valid point. I mean, what do you want me to say? Yeah, so this pawn on c6 is not even threatened. Okay, let's assume I still play rook a6. And again, the question is, the ball is back in white's court side, right? What do you do? So the only idea I can think of is g4. Either I trade queens or I play g4. G4, this is where your king is. Probably you're not going to do it. Okay, maybe Goryachkina can try to trade queens like this. Queen d1, queen b3, queen c4. But then the pawn on c6 is under attack.
Yeah, I cannot do that easily. Yeah.
Maybe something like rook c4. Try to provoke something. Of course, Kosteniuk is not going to rush with d5.
You can just play bishop e5 here.
Yeah, okay, let's say bishop e5. Okay, let's say king g2, bishop f6. How do you make a progress? You need to trade queens to have some ideas. Maybe sacrifice the exchange on the e4.
That was I was thinking, but then how you're going to get any advantage on the king side?
Yeah, with the bishop at a5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, it's easier said than done, because after rook d4, the pawn on c6 is under attack. So
yeah, I think black will take this pawn and just release from the tension rather than to take the exchange.
Okay, what else? Is there any way to trade queens? Because if the queens are on the board, Kosteniuk has made absolutely the right decision to have more flexibility in her defense.
Well, that's a very good question, yeah.
C4 square, A4 square, probably C4 square. Maybe here, Goryachkina needs to make some kind of a slow move, like King G2, and after Rook A8, if Kosteniuk does this, quickly rearrange the queen. And then force the queen trade, assuming it even forces anything. Right? Because if the queen goes away, then I have access to some b5 ideas.
G4 and b5, right? Although the bishop on a5 is hanging as well.
Yeah. So first you would have to play something like, let's say, whatever, King G8. Okay, King G8 maybe it's not very good. Let's say, oh, sorry. How did I lose this? Here, here. Queen E2, here, Queen C2. Let's say here, Queen C4, Queen goes back on F5. You put the Rook at A1.
And Rook B8 now back.
And Rook B8. And you put the Rook here, and then play Rook B5. You go here, you try to get there. And Black again, dances around. You just can't force.
You can't really force. You have one weakness on C7. You are guarding that weakness, and obviously there's not too much of other weaknesses here for Black.
Right. Dear viewers, what do you think? How this game is going to finish? I think our feeling is not a secret, right, Keti? We feel that this game is going to be a draw because we cannot find any progress. But how do you feel yourself? Or if you have some interesting questions that you would like to ask us, as you are already doing this, don't hesitate, right? So
that's right. Chess Drama in our YouTube channel says I would rook C4 and Rook E4, then swap Rook for a pawn and a bishop. That's what we were also considering, right?
Yeah, but how do you do it? Okay, I could still include Rook E4, Rook F4, by the way, at some point. Maybe this is part of the idea of Queen F3 opens Rook E4, Rook F4. So if Black is not careful, by the way, there's this.
Yeah, but now Bishop E5 stops that happening. And Rook C6 is a threat.
Okay, what if I am very creative here? This is probably nothing, yeah?
Nice.
No, it's nothing. It doesn't feel like this is even something. Yeah. Okay. Bishop B5. I have to include the G4. You know, I have to go back to this moment of Queen B5. Was this necessary? It's H4, because now White's chances are so limited what she can do at the king side. If the pawn was still on H2.
Yeah, you could do something like H3, G4 to start to open
like
up
this,
the king side. Maybe H-file for the rooks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, this is of course not going to happen, but maybe there were more chances. Like here, let's say Black pushes H4, you play G4. Let's say Black does nothing. You play F4, and there's something, right? And again, Black is probably going to play something like G5. There's some weaknesses. You can play Rook F1, etc. So I'm not very happy with this H4. From the White's perspective, of course.
Yeah, I agree. Rook A6 has been played here by Alexandra Kosteniuk, attacking the pawn on C6, which is for now guarded, but it keeps White's two pieces into defense position. So now this move, Bishop E5, Bishop F6, is a one way to repeat the position.
Right. Rook E4? Just gotta try it. There's no risk. Oh, wait, Rook E4 is Rook C6. You can't do it. Right?
Unless you play here Rook E1 and prepare Rook F4, but then you can go Bishop E5.
Rook
she
C4.
goes with Rook C4.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I
And
agree with the
neither
comment in the
player
chat.
will take the risk in the position. The problem for them is not like, how can you even complicate this position? There's like, it's so closed and running out from the ideas that, yeah, you definitely don't want to play g4 now and open up your king, because like black can always take this pawn and play rook to h8 and give up the pawn on c7 and go for h4 pawn and the king. Things can go really bad for white in that case.
Right. So, I mean, Kosteniuk needs to prove that she sees what's her setup. And maybe Goryachkina is still... I mean, of course, she has to try to play for the win because she has the white color, but she has a little more time. This also sometimes affects the judgment. You see you're having a little more time on the clock. This also presses you to do something. That's why...
Move, right?
Yeah, bishop e5. Very quickly responded by Kosteniuk, and this is also a signal to the opponent. I'm under control. I'm controlling everything here. What are we doing here? Let's go home, right? I've got this. I've got this. You have no chances here. And sometimes also the pace, how you are playing the moves, it affects your opponent's decision making. Because let's say, imagine yourself, Keti, that let's say Kosteniuk here would have 2 minutes on the clock and something like 8 moves to make. Of course, Goryachkina would try to play it on, right? But when you play it confidently, you play it quickly, you have 40 minutes on the clock, and you're not making any committal moves like g5, f5, etc. This is also a signal to your opponent that your opponent's got this, right? He controls, she, in this case, controls everything, and there's nothing to be done.
That's right. So offering draw is not possible until move 40, and this is move 31. We have a very interesting idea in the chat. How about queen to g2 and queen to h3 to attack the rook on h8 on c8?
Maybe the idea is actually to get the queen on d7. We can check this.
Oh, she's going for that.
She's gonna try, of course. It doesn't cost anything. It's an attempt. It's a move. So maybe black suddenly commits to 5, gives another target. Okay, let's assume I don't understand what's going on here, and I play... the rook is simply under attack. The pawn is not going to be targeted. Let's say I play here, bishop, queen h3. How do you deal with this threat?
There is one idea to give up the pawn on c7 and get c6 pawn. So for that you have to move the rook away. Rook b8, rook a8, rook f8, or rook d8 even, to avoid queen.
Yeah, but there's bishop c7.
No, yeah. Queen, rook to a8 then.
Are you sure you want to enter this with black? Because now the structure changes. For example, takes, I could even take. This is a position that white can play forever. There's the progress. And now with the Lagno bishops being traded, because we had a very similar position before, this feels like it's something. Okay, so Goryachkina has managed to find at least some idea. Queen g2, queen h3. Slightly unpleasant for Kosteniuk.
Right, yeah, it's not so easy to see something. Something that keeps the position going. Oh, how about rook a8 here? And what happens if queen gets on d7?
Which one? Here?
Rook, rook a6
this
to
one.
a8.
Okay, queen h3.
And in this position...
Very annoying, actually, you know, I like it. Because you don't want to play f5. You don't want to weaken the king. Maybe f5 is even good, but think about f4 ideas. The e-file opens. So Goryachkina has managed to come up with something practical. I don't think she really believes this is like immediately game killing, but the practical value is good. And there's the stare. There's the stare of Goryachkina. I mean, she likes it from time to time, staring the eyes with the opponent. This is actually giving two kinds of benefits. First, you gather some information from the opponent. Second, you send some sort of an intimidation signal to the opponent.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the stare, you look in the eyes, establish an eye contact. Very nice.
It's true. Okay, queen here. How about we get queen to d5 with idea queen to f3?
Okay, and if I play here?
Yeah,
Here?
queen f3 now. I want to take the pawn on d3, and I also want to play bishop to g3.
Yeah, that looks interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Right, what would you play here, Keti, if you had to make a decision?
I don't know if I want to go with this and with white to play queen to d7. To be honest, after queen f3 here, at least there is this bishop to g3 move, and there is this kind of repetition of the checks. Or black can also try first to get the pawn on d3 and attack the rook and have a passed pawn. That's something like counterplay for me. So maybe after queen to d5, white should not give up this opportunity. Rook a7 happened?
Very good defense by
nice.
Kosteniuk. Queen h3, rook d8, this is what she wants.
Nice. That's nice.
Stopping queen d7 idea. But now look at this. Suddenly black's pieces are a bit pinned. The rook on a7 is protecting the pawn on c7. It cannot move. The rook on d8 is pinned to defend a square on d7. Maybe even queen d7 is not a big deal, but once you see this, you start to feel uncomfortable because one shot and you're done. So you don't simply want to allow it. It's not very practical. How does white make a progress here? Can I do this?
f4? f5?
No. I wanted to sacrifice. Is this something? Probably nothing,
d3?
yeah? Queen, oh my god, okay. Because I thought that if you're going to play not queen d3, something like queen b8, I could have some ideas here. I mean, you have a bishop.
Yeah, rook e7.
Rook e7,
right?
yeah, this pawn is strong, but of course queen
e6.
d3. Queen d3, yeah, it's very precise. Maybe I can improve the idea somehow. How do I improve it? Maybe I can force black to make a mistake. I play queen f3, protect the pawn. And with the idea of rook c5, rook e5.
Yeah, we play rook a6 now. This is repetition,
It's
right?
a very valid suggestion. So. Yeah, what can I say? Yeah, you go back. You go back.
2 times repetition. Let's see what Goryachkina will play here. I like this resource of Kosteniuk rook a7. So now this rook from c8 can be finally free to move away.
All right. I'm also thinking there could be an option at some point. I'm not even sure how to make it work. Let's say I make some random move. Mm-hmm. Queen d5 and this.
Whoa.
So the big idea is that this pawn is very difficult to stop. Okay, it's very easy to stop it. It's bishop f6. I thought it's rook a8 and bishop c7, right? And I was having some excitement here, but yeah, of course. Although, I mean, you could continue this a bit while. This, of course, is never going to happen. We are commentators. We can have a look at it.
Yeah, in the game after queen h3, rook to d7 happened, and Kosteniuk is getting close to the time increment. This is move 32. She needs to make 33. Is it 33? Yeah. Makes more 7 moves to achieve the time extra 30 minutes on the clock. And Goryachkina is nowhere far from her time situation to 18 minutes and 11 minutes.
Queen g2. Okay, is this a traveled repetition right here? Queen g2, rook b8. Is this a draw offer? Is it or is it not? If
Kosteniuk plays rook to c8 now, I think that's a draw. Like queen g2 to me is a draw offer, yeah.
But now rook c8 makes no sense, right? Because rook on a7 protects it. So it's actually quite interesting psychological moment, because once you suspect that your opponent repeats the moves, might be willing to offer a draw, you want to meet him, right? Mm-hmm. And you repeat the position, but maybe actually your opponent is trying to get under your skin, and he a couple of times repeat the position just to gain more time, just to give you a false impression. And when you're like, you're mentally ready, okay, let's make a draw. Boom, play something else, right? And sometimes it's difficult to handle with this, right? I don't think this is, of course, going to happen here, but this is repeating the position.
It happens sometimes, yeah. When you think the opponent is okay to make a draw and then switches right away.
Yeah, so here we had this position already here. Queen g2 was before, rook a7, queen h3, rook d8, queen g2. So that would suggest rook c8 as a repetition.
But only second time. They need to beat third time.
Yeah, but probably Kosteniuk suspects that Goryachkina is not going to go for the repetition. No,
she went for
She goes.
C8.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Very interesting moment. This is a silent draw offer. Draw?
Draw agreement.
Draw. Black offers a draw.
There we go. Queen h3.
And Goryachkina says,
make a draw.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
There you go. Let's finish this game.
Yeah, to be honest, it's not something huge that anyone can try. So to make here a draw, it's quite reasonable.
And you need to call the arbiter, of course. You could not agree to a draw before 40th move. You have to call the arbiter. Dear arbiter, we have a truffled repetition. Please come here.
Right, trick to say. At this point, she could already call for the arbiter, right? It's third time.
She could. Who's going to call it? I mean, you see, Goryachkina is like, why are we playing here? It's been a truffled repetition. I think actually FIDE rules say that you can repeat the position 5 times, then the arbiter has to come and fix the game for you. Although there have been some funny moments. I think it was our ladies from the national team did it once in the Olympiad. They repeat the position like 30 times. in the Zeitz operation.
There was no one, no
knight g5, knight f3, knight g5, knight f3 like 30 times. That was really funny.
I'm scared of this arbiter when he approaches to the board.
But it's a truffle repetition now, right?
Yeah.
No, Goryachkina checks.
Goryachkina is writing down the move.
Yeah, draw.
Yeah.
Draw agreed.
Second draw today in the round 2 and second draw in the match of Alexander Kosteniuk and Alexander Goryachkina so far after 2 rounds and 4 games in total. We have not had any decisive result, which is fine, which is actually something that is not surprising for none of us. Indeed, as this is a lot of things on the stake, they don't want to make some risky decisions and go crazy. A lot of things will happen later on. Third round and fourth round in the classical portion is still ahead of us. Tomorrow will be day off, Artur, for the players. We're going to take a day off as well too. And in the interview, Kosteniuk said that they are in a very nice ancient city and they will go to some excursion to see some of the sightseeing of the city. And here we have all the draws in 2 games.
Right. So despite the fact that the games have been rather peaceful, I wouldn't really call them boring, right? Because it was very interesting strategic battle. In this particular game, I would say that Goryachkina had slightly better chances after the opening. Still, this choice of queen c2, bishop a4, bishop c6, then locking the bishop on a5 was probably not the best choice. But I think that Goryachkina won the opening battle, but was unable to get anything real out of later. Still, very, very high quality chess. And also, speaking about the second game of Katerina Lagno against Tan Zhongyi, very interesting idea of rook e3, but later Katerina was unable to find anything. And again, she was very pragmatic and decided, okay, if I don't have anything for the sake of the match situation, let's just, again, make a draw and hope for the best in the next games.
Yeah, that's it. So guys, we're going to take a day off tomorrow. As I mentioned, we'll be back in 2 days, 8 to 3 p.m. local time, Uzbekistan time, at 11 a.m. Central European time. Artur, you...
I'm doubled. Look at that. All right. That's great. Yeah, but it was absolutely a great day. So really appreciate that you were here. And Keti, we have to probably remind of our schedule, right? The schedule that the FIDE Women Candidates Pool B tournament has prepared tomorrow is a rest day for the players, for the commentators, for the amazing team who is working behind the scenes. You're not seeing them, but they're doing a wonderful job so far. And of course, they're going to continue to do it. So we are going to be back on, what day is today? Wednesday. We are going to be back on Friday, Keti, right?
Friday? I think a day before that.
Today is Wednesday, no?
Today is a Wednesday. Yeah, we're back on Friday. That's right. We're back on Friday.
Right. We are going to be back on Friday.
That's why I was kicked out from the camera. To give the wrong information to you. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us in the YouTube chat and also on our Twitch channel. Please make sure that you join us the other day too for more of the actions, and we're gonna definitely see only one player out of these 4 going to the finals of the candidates tournament, and then we're gonna know finally who will be the challenger of the current Women World Championship in June. So it is goodbye from us, and see you guys the day after tomorrow.
See you on Friday. Goodbye.